It's very interactive, and some of them actually involve exercise as well, which is what I'm going to talk to you about today.
Exercise.
Is that the best? My background, you can't talk, don't be saying bad things about exercise under your breath. I'm an exercise physiologist.
There you go.
I know. I just happened to land in this field. All right, so let's talk about aging in place.
How fast can you run?
I know, right? Very fast with that behind me. So we're going to talk aging in place, but I'm going to get very specific because there's different things that you can do to age in place. But today we're going to be relating that back to falls prevention. So basically we're going to talk about how am I going to create a safe environment. And the other part is, why are we even talking about falls?
Because we do it a lot.
Because we do, right? So falls are really important, and they're important because they're a real thing. And a lot of times when I'm out in the community, one of the biggest questions is, can we prevent falls? Are falls preventable?
Don't be stupid.
Don't be, well, that's a good one.
Keep old men off of roofs.
Well, actually, that's the behavioral one we're going to talk about that. You're shooting them out left and right. And I think one of the worst things that we can hear is that, oh, she fell. Oh, he fell. Because a lot of that can also be really scary when you hear what's happened afterwards. So let's talk about, are falls preventable? You already answered it. Yes. Falls are largely preventable.
Thank you for the largely.
Yes. They're not 100% preventable. And actually, we've all fallen, right, throughout all of our life. It just happened to be that when we were this small falling, it didn't hurt so much because we were lower to the ground.
And we bounced.
And we bounced. But when we get up a little bit taller, it's a lot more significant when we land on the ground.
And we break.
Yeah, and things start to break. Sometimes the chair, sometimes our body. Different things are breaking all the time. But the good news is that, yes, falls are largely preventable, and we're going to have a little discussion about what we can actually do to it. So the very first thing we need to do, though, is all get on the same page, is what is a fall? I think we pretty much know, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. A fall is any unintentional landing on the ground or some other surface below us. Unintentional, right? A fall is a slip, a trip, an accident, and I slipped over my dog and tripped down. Anything like that, we are constituting as a fall. So now that we're on the same page about what falls are, the next question is, have you had a fall? Anybody around here ever experienced a fall in your entire life?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. All the way from when we were small up
Has
to now.
anybody ever said no to that?
You know what? No. But I think it's really important that we all sit down and talk about it and say, like, we all have fallen, and it is very embarrassing sometimes, but there's nobody in this room or even outside of this room that hasn't fallen before. So the other question is here, some of the questions we'll go over is, were you hurt when you fell?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Which time?
Right. How many times have I fallen in the past year? I actually was just at our lake house. Well, I call him Poppy, my husband's dad. We were just at a lake house, and we were outside cleaning up. They were throwing stuff into the bonfire. And when they were doing it, Poppy's about 76 right now, and he's been outside working his entire life, and he was helping everybody throw the stuff in there, and I could see it in slow motion. There was like a piece of large flat metal, and he was kind of stepping on it, and then all of a sudden he actually did a really nice tuck and roll and fell down. He fell. And my sister-in-law, who's beside me, did the very first thing that she could think of, which was she screamed, and then she ran over to him, and then she tried to help him up.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. That was no. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but really, and how I reacted, and the best way to react when somebody has a fall, or if you have a fall, is that the very first thing to do, obviously be calm, because there's no sense to accelerate the situation.
Leave them alone.
Thank you. And you have to leave them alone. They have to be able to sit there. If you fall or somebody else falls, the very first thing that needs to happen is they need to sit there and figure out if they are okay. I don't know if you're okay. You know if you're okay. And what I have seen so many times, do you mind if I touch you for just a second? Let's say he fell. Somebody's going to help him up, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, because now all of a sudden, I don't know if his shoulder got hurt. I don't know about his
didn't
elbow.
know.
I don't, yeah, see, I wrenched it up. Let's just put that right back down. All gentle. So it's really important that when you do fall, or you know somebody who's fallen in front of you, calm situation, ask to see if they can get up on their own, no jerking. Let's just keep diving into it. So the next little topic we're talking about when it comes to falls is actually, it's the fear of falling. And the fear of falling is that lasting concern that you actually have about falls. And that can happen if you fall on yourself, or maybe you just heard about somebody falling and then you have a fear of falling. Or maybe you haven't fallen, you don't know anybody else, but you just are just getting to that place where you feel a little bit unsteady and you have this fear of falling. Most importantly, the problem that we find with fear of falling is that we start to limit our activities. I got another story for you. So, as I told you, I graduated as an exercise physiologist. So all the way through school, I was doing some personal training, and I would go to people's houses to do this. And one gentleman is a dear friend of mine. His name's Bob. And Bob had been a firefighter for 20 years, and then he retired. And after that, he was a carpenter with his other two brothers for another 20 years, and then he retired after that. And Bob was this. He's very social. Just love to talk, love to talk. And so when I met Bob, Bob was sitting on his recliner, feet up, with his remote control right here, and his most magnificent wife, Marianne, going back and forth and getting Bob whatever he wanted. She took care of that man. But let me tell you, so Bob, who had been a firefighter all of his life, and then a carpenter all of his life, intensely active, incredibly sociable, one day he was walking down his driveway, and it was a very small decline, not much at all. And he was going there during the middle of the day to get the trash cans and pull them up, because that was his job. And when he got down there, he fell, you know those little gutters that are right there? He fell into that gutter. Bob was there for 2 hours, and that was when everybody else was at work. He was finally helped by one of the neighbors had looked out the window and saw him there after 2 hours. He was humiliated, embarrassed. He was in pain.
Oh, cold.
Well, it was in the summertime, so he went cold. But what happened then is he had this, what we call this fear of falling. Now, there's healthy fears of falling, and then there's things that are unhealthy. So Bob had this fear of falling, and he did what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy, which basically means, have you heard that one before? A big one. So basically means Bob never wanted to fall again. So in order for Bob to never fall again, well, Bob just start right there in that chair, kicked his legs up, and Marianne helped him the whole time. But now guess what happened?
Marianne
fell.
No, not Marianne. Marianne's fine, everybody. Marianne's good.
That's good.
No, with Bob, since he sat down so much because he didn't want to fall, his legs got weak. His hips got weak. His balance got awful. And then instead of picking up his feet to walk, Bob started to shuffle. All of that right there means that Bob is more likely to fall.
I bet his bone density plummeted.
Absolutely. Bone density went down too. So that's what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy, is that he wanted to protect himself so much from a fall. He protected himself, but then he made himself more likely to fall and get hurt. And that's what we're trying to prevent when it comes to the fear of falling. There's healthy ways to prevent a fall, and then there's the unhealthy ways that keep you captured inside the house. And oh, by the way, the other thing with Bob, remember I told you he was incredibly sociable? Bob actually got very depressed. And if you knew Bob, I mean, just so fantastic. So whenever I was around him, he was just having a great time. But whenever I would leave and other people weren't there, Bob was socially isolated and got very depressed. So those are some ways that it can actually powerfully impact any of us. And this kind of just tells you, so why are we even here talking about this? Why does fear of falling even matter? And I told you, sometimes what it can do is can have us stop those activities we like to do. Maybe we stop going to the movie theater because it's dark and it has like a little decline. I can't see in it. Maybe I stop going out to the restaurants because there's too many people there. Now I can't enjoy family dinners with my family. Things like that. That's why it matters. Fear of falling matters because we get leg weakness. And don't worry, I'm going to show you some exercises later so we can actually get stronger in that. And we already talked about that third one that says inactivity leads to falls. That's that self-fulfilling prophecy. Socially isolated and depressed. Man, this is a bummer topic, isn't it? So here's the types of fall risks that we have. So these are the 3 things that you can do that contribute to falls. Physical, behavioral, and environmental. Let's break that down. Physical means that as I get older, certain things in my body change and I have to be aware of what's going on. Because I can prevent a fall if I do things like annual vision checks. Did you know your vision and hearing change, and that can contribute to falls? So you need to get your vision and your hearing checked every single year. Other physical risk factors, how about strength? Our muscle strength will decline. If you stop getting up and down on that chair because your knees hurt, and I know your knees can hurt, I understand. But once you stop that, then you're not going to be able to do it anymore.
And your knees are still going to hurt.
And your knees will probably hurt worse, honestly, once you stop moving.
Right.
Yeah. So those are some physical risk factors. Behavioral risk factors. Somebody mentioned it before. Behavior is, well, I saw those leaves up in that gutter, and I'm going to climb that ladder and go take care of those leaves. And I know I'm 86 years old, and I know something back in my head's telling me probably not a good idea, but I'm going to do it anyways. That's a behavior. Or it's using a step ladder that in the kitchen to reach that one dish on that very high level, but oh, by the way, I'm going to use the counter. I'm going to step on my step ladder and use the counter as my balance hands, right? Normally when you do it, you want to use a step ladder that actually has a handrail.
Yep.
That's behavior. So behavioral risk factors is what that is. And finally, we have environmental risk factors. What does your home look like? Do we have some fall risks in our home? Do we have some fall risks at the gym that we go to every single day? I know you do. No. Okay.
Get rid of scatter rugs.
What's that?
Get rid of scatter rugs.
Absolutely. Yeah, those scatter rugs are very dangerous.
Throw rugs when you're the one being thrown.
Yeah, that has appropriately named, isn't it?
That's how my mother broke her hip.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
She was on the floor 12 hours before I found her.
There you go. So very real situations. And it breaks your heart, doesn't it?
And then I became my mother. I
Yes.
was
Correct.
too high on a ladder and I fell.
Okay.
Crushed my heel bone.
Wow. How long ago was this?
Ooh, how long ago was it?
That long.
5+ years?
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you changed things differently in your life?
Oh yeah. I pay others to go up.
Yeah, that's the way to do it right there. I love it. All right, so this is just a quick list of what do I have control of and what can't I control. Well, we know we can't control, right? But what you do have control of, physical inactivity. And let me just tell you that I'm going to show you a couple exercises today, but one of my most favorite physical activities ever is this thing right here. And I'm going to blind myself. What's that called?
Walking.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about when you walk, it's actually a balance activity. I'm going to slow motion that, right? So I'm going to step, and by the way, I'm going to do a heel toe because I'm going to strike down and not shuffle my feet like kids do these days. Oh, good. But when I strike down my heel and I lean all of my weight over to one side, my other foot, all of a sudden it's a balance, balance, balance until I strike again. That means that walking is one of the best balancing techniques you can do. So if you want to get stronger, if you want to live longer, physically active and strong, one of the best exercises you can do for yourself is walking. I'll show you some other stuff, but that's the key.
And mixed terrain. Up and down hills.
I love mixed terrain.
Yeah.
And you know what that does? That does our ankles, and we'll do some ankle, what they call ambulation, but that allows my ankle to get stronger because my ankle's going like this constantly when I have mixed terrain. And then that means the next time I go onto a sidewalk and some of the rock is broken, but I've been doing this walking and this mixed terrain walking, I'll be able to adjust and adapt pretty quickly because my foot is used to that. Just training it. The other things we can change, home environment. We'll go through a home risk assessment in just a few minutes. We already talked about your vision. Every single year getting it checked. Medication usage, we'll talk about that as the very last slide because that's definitely a risk for falling. Having that fear of falling, only because that also leads to that self-fulfilling prophecy that we discussed. And that fear of falling leads to social isolation, weakness in the body, and then improper use of assistive devices. Do you know what I mean when I say assistive devices?
Canes and walkers.
Canes and walkers. And if you have a cane or a walker, it's really best if you actually get fitted by the, who's the person? A physical therapist.
Who is that?
Who is that? Because typically, if I remember correctly, cane's supposed to be like this. And it actually goes with your good leg. It's like up with the good, down with the bad when it comes to stairs. Have y'all heard of any of that before? We cover that a little bit in the falls prevention classes, so, and I don't want to mislead you, but if you or somebody you know have to use an assistive device, be sure to get it fitted by a physical therapist, not necessarily a doctor. And what they mean by up with the good, it always goes with the good leg, and you go up with your good leg as you go upstairs or up a hill. And when you go downstairs, it's down with the bad leg first. Up with the good, down with the bad.
Go sideways.
Oh, that's another good one. You just like go like, yeah, that's another very good one.
Easy on the knees.
Yep, that too.
Or what about backing down the stairs?
You mean you're going to go backwards?
Yeah, down the stairs.
No.
No, you don't like that?
I don't like going backwards downstairs.
Is it because of the
Why
vision?
would you do
your
that?
lack of vision?
Lean
See where you're
forward
going?
and support yourself on the stairs as you're going backwards.
If your feet slip, if it's carpeted or whatever.
I
You
If-
know.
If you have slippery stairs, you have an environmental factor you should have taken care of a long time ago.
if I had to scoot downstairs, I wouldn't go backwards scooting. I'd go on my butt to scoot because
Well,
the weight is in the
using
rear.
Using both arms as well as legs.
to go back. But I'm
To go
saying
down the stairs,
I
backwards.
still would turn. I would turn it around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now to go up the stairs, I could see crawling up. But to go down the stairs,
Excuse me.
butt first. Butt.
Your butt doesn't help you, but that's okay. Good.
Open for discussion, right? All right.
By the way, I change my age every day.
You change your age every day? You get younger or older?
I get older.
Okay. Are you aging in place? You're aging right now as we speak?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Second by
All of
second.
us. All of us. We're all aging in place.
And I want to keep on doing it.
That's a
Everybody
good.
else talks about how bad it is to get old, but you don't see them say, well, I think I'll stop.
It's
Stop right here.
the alternative, yeah.
I like that.
Not at all.
We already talked about like some of these things that you can actually do. What we're going to do is I'm going to talk about the last three. Having your vision checked. There's not much else left to say about that other than have your vision checked, right? But let's take a look at the very first one about making your home safer. And then we'll talk about some of the exercises you can do in your house. And then the very last thing we'll finish up with is the medication information. So for you, this actually comes, the information I'm going to give you is a home safety checklist for falls. This is something that you can do in your house or in any environment. Take one and pass it on down if you don't mind. And what this will have is on the left side, it'll kind of tell you floor, stair steps, kitchen. And on the right side, it gives some recommendations for it. And at the very bottom, at the very bottom, it has referral options just for the Mecklenburg County area as well. But there's a few things I just wanted to highlight with this. Oh, here's your home safety checklist. So when it comes to a home safety checklist, if you did go see a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, they will actually usually come to your home and this is about what they actually give you. Or they'll go around. So this is a very useful tool that you can use. But I just want to highlight a couple of things. Let's start with floors. When it's talking about looking at the floor of each room, you see that number 2? Throw rug. Remove your throw rugs. Or at the very least, make sure you have some rubber backing to them if you can't, if you are like my mother who refuses to remove them. Make sure you have some good backing to it. Otherwise, like you said, it throws people. How about objects on the floor? Do you pick up something as soon as it falls or do you just leave it there and then come get it a little bit later?
Or just leave it there.
Yeah, or just leave it there. So objects on the floor can be a problem.
Just coming back later to is how you get hurt.
And then wires and cords on the floor. Anybody have any issues with some long telephone cords?
They don't bother me.
Yeah.
I know, we're kind of getting obsolete to those issues, aren't we?
That's good.
Take a look at the stairs and steps, inside and out. How about leaving objects on the stairs? You know, the objects that you leave because when you go upstairs, you're going to grab them and go up. How about this? When you get out of the, you went to the grocery store and you have all your bags, but you only want to make one trip, so you're loading up as many as you can, and both arms now are completely loaded. Now you don't have one arm, just in case for a sake that you might need to fall. Something like that. Something really simple. Still sticking with the stairs, making sure you have a light over the stairway or a light anywhere that is dark and you need to see. Does anybody have any suggestions for that? Because I actually do. Let's say that you have to actually go down into the basement, but the light switch is at the very bottom of the basement. What can you do?
You use phone.
Okay, I love it. Use the phone light, definitely. Anything else?
Put it on a motion sensor.
Okay, or a motion
Or
sensor.
a heat sensor.
Okay, good. So he has a light there too. Excellent.
Remote button.
A what?
A remote button.
A remote button light.
Yeah.
So just like making sure that you have something.
Call
to
an
get down there.
electrician and get the light put at the top of the stairs.
Definitely. That's another one. There's also these light switches I recently discovered from one of our classes. And I think they're at Lowe's or Family Dollar. They're just like this big, and you just stick it on the wall, and you can flip it up, and it'll illuminate like a small space, but just enough to get you through it.
Useless, runs on batteries, and then the battery runs out when you forget to turn it off. Been there, done that.
How about when we talk about the kitchen, that step stool? What is a suggestion that we've already talked about? What could you do if you need to use a step stool in a kitchen?
Keep it readily at hand.
Keep what readily at hand?
The steps.
Oh, keep the step stool readily at hand. And then what needs to be, what do you need to have structurally with a step
railing
stool?
across the top,
Absolutely.
and
Chunk.
the step you
yourself.
stand on should be wider, bigger.
A nice long, wide base.
Yes. The step, the second step.
Yeah. If you even need to go to the second step.
Right.
That's the other thing.
It needs to be heavy enough to stay where it is.
How about bathrooms and showers?
They need to be heavy enough.
Non-slip in the bathtub.
Non-slip skid, those little skids in the bathtubs. And then what about those railings? Anybody have those?
Handrails.
Handrails in your bathtubs?
Yeah.
In your showers?
Yeah.
Don't go.
Don't have them.
Or a shower seat. Sometimes you can get a nice shower seat people can sit on.
One of the most common places people have falls, the most common place, of course, is in the home, but most specifically is in your bathroom. Bathroom and kitchens. So that's what you've really got to work on, are making sure that that bathroom's nice and safe.
Transitioning from the floor to the tub and back
From the floor to the tub
and back.
and back again. So working on those transitions.
Stepping over and into.
I love
and
it.
back out.
And that's the same when it comes to a car. It's the same type of transition that we're talking about, right? So let's just say that I'm heading into a car. Let's say this is the outside. I've opened my door. There's my seat. There's my thing. Sit down first, and then bring a leg over and bring a leg over. Same way that you do into a bathtub. You would, on the ledge, sit down first, leg over,
So
and then you
vaulting
can lower
over the
down.
Back and sliding.
Yeah, and you slide down if you choose to do something like that. But at least you can slide and not fall.
It is not an opportunity for acrobatics.
No, you don't want any acrobats in the bathroom. And then finally, when it comes to the bedrooms, what are some suggestions when your bedroom, from your bedroom to your bathroom, is completely pitch dark and you need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night? Another fine place for falls. What are some options?
Nightlight.
Is that next to your bed?
There's a flashlight in every room of my house.
Excellent. So flashlights in every single room.
Nightlight.
Nightlight motion detector.
Motion detectors. I'm hearing a lot of nightlights and motion detectors.
Bookcase headboard,
Uh-huh.
and I just reach and turn the light on.
Okay, so you just have easy access right to it.
It's going in, that's the problem, because when I go in, I just turned out lights in this room, and I go into my bedroom, and I haven't been in there yet, so the
Okay.
light's still out. and my eyes aren't used to the dark. When I
So
wake up
true.
in the middle of the night and I open my eyes in my bedroom, I can see fine
Okay.
because it's dark and I'm used to the dark. So there's a itty bitty little blue light over there, and you know I can see fine. It's when I'm going in.
So what are you doing then when you go in to prevent a fall?
I bring one of the flashlights.
Okay, so you're keeping a flashlight with you at all times,
Flashlights
anyways.
all the time.
One other thing, since you just kind of mentioned it, and I just want to hit on it too. Do you ever, away from the sheet a little bit, do you ever get a little dizzy when you move from a seated to a standing position, or lying down to a seated
Once or
position?
twice I have.
Everybody probably does
Yeah.
from time to time.
That's a little blood pressure thing going on. They call it something fancy because they call it orthostatic hypotension. But all you need to know is I get dizzy. And then you need to know, what do I need to do in order to prevent that? Well, what's going on? What do you do to prevent it? Or if it happens,
I
what do you
just
do?
don't get up here as much.
Yeah, just don't get up. That's a good idea.
No, I know that if I'm getting dizzy just from standing up, I need to do more Tai Chi.
Oh, that's beautiful. And what's going on is the blood. So if I'm going from a seated to a standing position, my heart hasn't had a chance to pump as much blood as it needs to my head, and then I get dizzy. It'll get there eventually, but a lot of times if you're, now you're like, if Lord willing. So if you're going from a seated to a standing position and you get dizzy, the best thing to do is just to stand still, and if you can, touch something, and then wait for it to go away. The other thing that you can do is, before you get out of bed in the morning, you do what's called feet pumps. So before you actually get out of the bed in the morning, you let your feet dangle off the side and you do these feet pumps. And what the feet pumps do is they help to get the blood back up to, not back up there, but help it to get where it needs to go, so that way when you stand up, you won't get dizzy and stand.
Also helps with cramps.
Yeah, helps my feet too. It's
I
nice to
get
move around.
cramps right here.
You should also stretch
When I
in
wake
bed
up.
before you get up.
I love that. That's nice.
Stretch in bed before you get up.
A gentle ease
Take
to the bed.
30 seconds, 45 seconds. Make sure everything is in the right place and the muscles are working to support you when
You
you
can do a
step down.
bicep in the air with your feet.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. That's nice.
Also, all sorts of stretching, especially if you have a bad leg.
Bad heel. Someone's got
Christian,
bad heels around here. I want you to take a look at my picture here. Tell me some of the ideas. So what are some of the wrong places, things that we could correct?
Get rid of the rug.
The
All right,
cord-
rugs out.
The
The
cord.
cord.
Cord is out of control, crazy.
Definitely fix that broken chair.
Yeah,
number
that's a
6.
rough looking broken chair there.
Throw it away. I don't like it.
I think that's about it on that one. How about this one?
Ooh.
What's going on here?
Well, first of all, you're awfully far from that counter to be reaching up into the cabinet over top of it.
Isn't that the
So-
truth? So there's a lot of stuff way too high, and then the stool is it looks a little bit shaky to me. What else do we have that could be fall hazards?
It's on a rug.
It's on a rug.
Not-
And it's on a slip rug of all things.
It's not even all the way
You're
on.
gonna
the
step down on the dog.
Well, pets are another big fall hazard. They love to be around you at all times.
Got the cord in the way off the counter.
And the cord. So she's in a real bad way right there.
Yeah, she's gonna die.
Oh, she's not gonna
She might fall.
Good.
Now let's do one more. So this is our outside. This is what our house is looking as we're coming up into it. What are some of our fall issues here?
Broken steps.
Yeah, definitely broken steps. What else?
Your rail doesn't go all the way down.
The rail doesn't go all the way down. It's only on one side.
Broken sidewalk.
Sidewalk's looking awful.
Plants in the way.
Plants in the way of where I'm trying to walk, right in the line with the handrail.
And the extra hand grip thing is where you don't need it. What is that over there for?
How about the bushes are growing over into the trail?
Overgrown
there we
bushes.
go.
There we go.
Yeah.
That was the last one. Yeah. And they did good. They have actually an extra rail right next to the door and then a light. As long as the light bulb's changed and it's working.
I reckon maybe 7 is an uneven sidewalk.
Yep.
Well, it's
Yeah.
going down and
Okay,
then
so
up again
hard
or something.
trip hazard.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a rough looking sidewalk there.
What number 8?
Y'all are getting sharp. Question is, can you replicate this in your own home? Not the actual picture, but
You see a lot of places that look just like that. I mean, that's not uncommon.
And one time I taught, it's called a matter of balance at the YMCA, and we do all falls prevention. That's what it's at for about 8 classes. And one of the things we do is we do that safety assessment. It's a little bit different, but we do a community safety checklist. And so they went into the bathrooms, the locker rooms, and this YMCA had a pool, and they didn't have any non-slip, non-skid in the bathrooms. People had fallen there before. So the group got together and petitioned the YMCA. And
Good for them.
they actually added some safety bars in there too. So
Wow.
yeah, I know. Good for them, right?
Yeah.
Now let's go to the next one. So we talked about vision. We talked about a home safety checklist, which you have in front of you. What a fantastic tool. And now let's talk about some exercises that you can actually do in the home. Let me see if this other slide is part of it. No, we'll go to here. So I'm just going to ad-lib some of these exercises that you can do in the home. They can be chair-based, which means you could be sitting in your TV, watching TV, and during the commercial breaks, this is what you do. Or you can choose to stand up and do something. So since you can barely see me, I think I'll just do it standing, actually. So one thing that you can do is just lift your knee up and down. And actually, let's do this. This is exciting, team. All right, so if you're willing to participate with me, just back up just a little bit from the table. We'll be fine. All right, now, if your back is against this chair, like you're having a great time, pull your back off the chair, lift your chest, and brace them pretty little abs. Now, I want you to take your right leg and just lift your right knee up and down. Up and down. Up and down. And as you're doing it, I need your chest lifted. And you're going to get a little burning sensation in those hip flexors. Yowzers. And then go to the other side. Anybody feel that?
Sure.
Good. Just a little bit. And then the next thing we're going to do, it's going to be harder for you guys to see it over there, so I want you to take your knee up, extend your leg out, bring it back in, and tap it down. So it's going to look like, keep doing that on your side. You bring it up, you extend, in, and down. Up, squeeze. And now we're working here, working that nice quad muscle. And if you have any knee issues, this is a really good one for anybody who has any knee issues. You can do it seated or standing. If you did it on your right leg, you might as well do a little bit on your left leg, because we need to even ourselves out just a little bit. Every time you do it, make sure your chest is lifted. You're not going all the way back like you're having a good time. Nice. So super simple, not too bad. The other thing we talked about is we talked about getting in and out of a car, but this is another good way of actually doing it. So if you're seated, step out, stand up, sit back down, and bring your feet back together. You can do it to the other side. Step out, stand up, sit back down, and back together. Because these are functional things that you do all the way throughout our lives, right? My most favorite is this one. So, if you're in the back of the seat, I want you to kind of walk your hips up just a little bit. I need your feet flat to the floor. Lean forward a little bit and have the table in front of you. And then I want you to lean forward a little more and then stand up for me. Whoever's participating. And sit back down. And stand up. And sit back down. I know, because I'm falling for it. One more time, stand up. Oh man, this is good stuff. And sit back down. And that's our squat.
That's good.
So that's an all-around one right there. So whenever you can, very simple exercises for our legs, keeping our leg strength up, keeping our glutes, our hips really strong. My recommendation, walking, and as many of those up and down things you can get, as many times a day as you can get it when it comes to exercise. All right. And the real reason actually why I'm actually here today, even though I've been talking to you about exercise and falls prevention, is to really help promote some of our programs. And one of those programs is a matter of balance. And a matter of balance is a falls prevention program. Basically what we do for 8 classes. It's free community classes. We meet 8 times, twice a week or once a week. We meet for about an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours if I have a really talkative group. And it's a free class to all community members. And we always have an exercise component within that class as well. That class is probably our most popular in our 9-county region. And then the other one I heard you mention is Tai Chi. Tai Chi I know is offered at the Ty Bola Senior Center. I'm sure it's offered in other places in Mecklenburg County. I know there's several other counties that do it. And when you see that it's offered in places like that, a lot of that funding actually comes from our agency. Oh yeah. And Tai Chi is really great because what it does is it moves really slow, right? And it allows us to shift our weight from one leg to the other. So we're working on balance. And it's also been shown to really help improve strength.
Every exercise includes breathing rhythm with the exercise.
Outstanding.
You breathe in when your chest is expanding, and you breathe out when your chest is compressing from the motion you're doing.
Love it. How long have you been doing it?
About 2.5 years.
That's nice. It's a real compliment. Usually you should be able to, you want to be able to stand on one foot for about 5 seconds. And that's that's when you know you can progress to Tai Chi. But even if you can't, you can actually do some of this Tai Chi seated.
So what was that plate demonstration on your back around?
Oh, really?
That's too big. I'll drop that.
Oh, okay.
Give me a cup.
Okay.
There's
It's got stuff
I
in it.
gotta
That's
do-
probably
I
not a good
gotta do-
idea either. How about the orange? How about the orange thing?
That's a higher level, actually.
Steve can
How about that?
Steve can demonstrate this.
Okay.
Okay.
This is called serving the tea. I do it standing, but you could do it sitting.
All right.
Basically, you can do it with 2 or 1, but I'm going to pretend I'm doing it with 2, and I don't really need that. I can just imagine that it's there. Okay. Fingers spread as far as you can spread them so that you're not grasping anything. It's sitting. Imagine a tray with a cup of tea. And I take the cup and I bring it all the way around. And then I take the other cup and I go up first and go all the way around and come back under.
Cool.
And then I do it the opposite way. And the opposite way. Then I do both simultaneously in opposite directions.
Jeez, that's some coordination, man.
And then I do it backwards simultaneously.
Yeah, not happening.
And then I do both the same direction.
Without dropping
The
whatever's
tea.
in your hand.
Yes.
Oh.
Now, if you really want to practice this a lot, the thing to put in your hands are yoga blocks.
Oh, nice.
Because they're big and they're bulky and you
Flat.
can't grab them. They're flat, and if you drop them, it doesn't matter. And you should do the entire exercise once, and then you should stop. And then when you reach the point where that's not enough to give you the full, what this does, by the way, is it stretches everything from your ear to your butt. And it's the best way in the world to get ready to do exercises.
Love it. Outstanding.
Is that a Tai Chi move, or is that?
It's actually, Universal Yoga uses it, Tai Chi uses it, Qigong, which is energy farming. It's a very well-known exercise. I learned it at the Peaceful Dragon,
Wow.
and they do the
What do you
most
call it?
Serving the tea.
serving the tea. And the idea is that you should eventually be able to do it not with a yoga block, but with a tray and a cup full of tea.
Well, we offered you a tray and a cup today. You declined.
Yeah, I declined it because I didn't have it. I had a grapefruit.
I know. Okay, I know. I just played.
Which it's harder probably to keep on your hand than a tray.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
you know,
more
'cause
than- yeah.
it rolls.
It's a
you know.
roller.
But I do that one every day. And there's another one, which you were talking about, the matter of balance. There's a thing called push the mountain, move the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole long thing, but the main thing that you need to learn to do is to put your foot to the side and bring your hands down at the same time, and then come back. So you do the various parts of that, and then there's 4 other exercises. I do them every day.
Love it.
Stepping over the fence.
And you see how that how this is all about balance right here and shifting his weight.
Now, I can't balance on one foot as well as anything. I have a real, I don't know why, but I can't. I've tried it, So I have a stick that I use when I'm going to do this side. So I don't have to, or
That's
I can
wonderful.
just, but
Touch wall something.
you don't touch anything. And then there's a whole series of these things that help you stretch, like throwing rocks, which is you reach behind. So start with your left hand. You reach behind and get a rock, and you throw the rock.
I felt that one.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
And then you reach the other side and get a rock, and you throw the rock. So you do
Beautiful.
5, 10 rocks. They're all there's not all of Tai Chi that you need to learn, because some of Tai Chi is actually a combat art. This is Qigong. This is about energy.
You
I
learned
love
that
it.
during 60s protests, right?
Huh?
That you learned that move during the 1960s.
The throw the
This
rock
is
move?
throwing the rock.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tai Chi is beautiful there.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's lots of different
Thanks for showing
forms.
us that. That's cool.
Yeah, lots of different forms.
Thanks for showing us that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So be sure to explore Tai Chi or Matter of Balance. I brought some of those little flyers if you're interested at all in Matter of Balance.
So hold on, you said that that's available in several places in Charlotte? Tyvola Road you mentioned, or some?
Tai Chi is available at the Tyvola Senior Center. Apparently also it's available at the Peaceful Dragon. Did I get that
That's a
right?
professional place. You go sign up for. You
Okay.
become a member, and they want you to. I mean, it's a legacy Tai Chi.
Oh, sounds
kung fu
beautiful.
place,
And
it's
that's free at the
beautiful.
Tyvola Center?
They have at least one Tai Chi class for free, and then after that they usually offer them for like $2 or $3. They keep it pretty nominal.
And
That's
the
great.
Y
That's great.
in Gaston County has
Mm-hmm.
a number of.
And I think what they offer is called Tai Chi for Arthritis. I think is it Qigong?
Yeah,
I think it's
Qigong.
Qigong. That's the one that they have there, which is the energy one.
they have a Qigong thing for old farts in particular. I don't think that's what they call it, but
Probably not. They probably don't. Oh, and this is just showing you real quick Matter of Balance. We already talked about it. 8 2-hour classes, doing exercises, setting goals. Look how happy they are.
They look super happy.
that lady didn't look. That one on the left didn't look. all that
No,
happy.
she was late for class. And here's your Tai Chi. I don't think they're throwing the rock here though.
The dude on the left is serious, serious.
He's having a great time.
He's gonna hurt somebody with
Man, he
with his
does.
skills.
It's a little too serious for
All
me.
the combat,
These Tai Chi classes tend to be ongoing, so they don't necessarily have a start and begin date. You just go right into them, and they just usually have them continuous, which is really nice. And to finish it up, I told you I'd talk really briefly, only one single slide on medications, but it is super important. The deal when it comes to medications and falls prevention, the general rule of thumb is that if you take more than 4 medications, you're at risk for a fall. You should definitely every year, get your medications reviewed by a pharmacist. And please make sure that if you're going to see a pharmacist, if you see multiple pharmacies, you take all your medication together, or even better is if you actually go to one single pharmacist for all of your medications, so they always have a running list of exactly what you're taking, and they can be the ones to notify you to say, hey,
And they have.
I'm pretty sure these things are going to interact. Yeah.
And they have software which will automatically notify.
Kick it out, won't it?
This guy shouldn't take
Yeah.
both of these meds.
And that's why it's best if you can go to a single pharmacy to get all your medications filled. It's best to do it that way. And then just being sure to read your labels and taking your medication exactly as prescribed. But the general rule of thumb is if you take more than 4, make sure you get them reviewed. Talk with your pharmacist. All that good stuff. All right. That wraps me up like a bow tie.
All right.
You
Any
didn't
questions?
mention pets to any great degree, and I know of 5
didn't.
people who are permanently limping or disabled from dogs. They don't train the dogs when they get them. They let the dogs go weave back and forth. You need to train the dog to go to just on the left is generally how you train them.
Yep.
I got my dog after I fell, and she got me up and out and mobile again. But you need to train them. You need to know about dogs. You need to not have them running up and down the stairs if you're going. If the dog is going to go up the stairs, the dog has to be on your left and take one step only every time you take a step. And it's easy to train them with just positive reward. But I know 5 people who have some sort of permanent disability or permanent limp from dogs.
It's a very good point. Dogs and actually cats too.
Will go through your legs coming down the stairs too.
And you can't train cats very well. I'm sure there's somebody out there who can, but yes, I completely agree.
You didn't see America's Got Talent this past year.
Did they train the cat?
They had cats jumping through. Cats going across parallel bars with his upper feet, with the bottom feet hanging.
Cat.
Oh my goodness.
So, Angel, can we do like a round of questions before?
Shoot.
Transition to Hillary.
Yes.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
You may have mentioned it, may be a repeat, and I might not have heard it, but you spent such a long time on falls. From what I understand, falls can generally represent a major life change. It could be a major life-changing event and a very negative life-changing event. Is that's the reason why you put such great emphasis on the falls in your presentation?
Well, I did the presentation on aging in place as referring to what we actually have our information, but the actual answer is yes. Falls are actually a real problem. One statistic that came out, I believe it's through CMS Medicare, said that falls in 1 year cost, this is non-fatal injury falls, cost about $31 billion to this country in 1 year. But I just want to equate that to $31 billion was the same as it cost for cancer treatment in 1 year.
Wow.
So falls are increasing, and some of the reason is behavioral. Some of the reason though is that because we have more people that are aging up.
And baby boomers.
So everyone should pretty much take this checklist seriously, regardless of age. I mean, my mother is older. She's a senior citizen. She lives in the house, and there's some things here that I could definitely make adjustments to. So this is great information for me.
And the fact is, if you really, the time to learn the appropriate methods for changing your position and moving up and down stairs and carrying objects and doing all that is when you're 20.
Yeah.
Get the right habits.
You should always do it that way so that when you're 80, you won't have to remember how you're supposed to do it.
Gotcha. Great point.
And we even, during our Matter of Balance classes, we have physical therapists that come in and talk about these things. But actually for us, being that we are all about healthy aging, especially my unit of the area agency on aging, we're about healthy aging, and falls is our biggest issue. That's what EMT tells us all the time. The fire department tells us all the time. They're dealing with it every single day over and over again, and they're trying to figure out how to handle it. So we're just trying to be proactive with it, with education out there.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm thinking of another thing, driving. You said getting in and out of the car, but just driving the car, I always use, or try to remember always, to use my blinker, because I know I'm getting older all the time, and that I will forget at some point in time if it's not second nature to me. So it's just, my granddaughter teases me, there's nobody on the road, there's, why are you using your blinker? I said, because that's what you need to do to make a habit out of it.
Yes, to make it cautious. And the other thing too, when you mentioned about driving and things like that too, the other important thing about always keeping mobile is when I'm driving or if I'm backing up, I have to do things like this, right? Look behind me. Or, so you always need to make sure that you're doing exercises that, such as Tai Chi, when you're kind of looking behind, or making sure that you keep that range of motion in your neck and in your spine, that you're actually doing those twists like that as well. So all that good stuff. Good points. Anybody else?
Well, there's the links to those 2 exercises I gave. that you can see on YouTube
Oh, beautiful.
if somebody wants it.
All that type of movement.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to bring Hillary over here. Hillary.
Thank you.
All
All right, there you go.
Exciting.
So, just in transition, one additional question from it can be directed at both of you. So, Central Lina offers assistance to try to. This has a home safety checklist and it has the logo on it and all that. Do you all assist not just with doing an assessment, or do you help people actually make changes in their homes? Is that a service you guys provide?
We don't actually provide that particular service. What
see.
we do, and this will be kind of a brochure of all of our healthy
Okay.
living programs, if you
Great.
want to take that.
Yeah. Nice.
What we would do is in our Matter of Balance class, we would have them go and do their home safety
I
checklist,
see.
and we would have a discussion of it at the
I
end
see.
of it.
I see.
Yeah,
I wonder if there's any like contractors or specialists in the area that specialize exactly on that. Is that I wonder.
Sometimes a lot of the modifications that I know we've worked with in the past are a lot of folks that work with the disability world. So they do very good modifications when you work with some of the Centers for Independent Living. Department of Social Services does a home and home repair modification kind of plan.
Uh-huh.
They'll do ramps, they'll do different things depending on the qualification of age, income, and some of those factors. But
So there are contractors that'll come in and do it for your baby. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like they'll
yeah.
do baby safety for the whole house.
Yeah.
There's contractors that'll do that.
Now, at the very bottom of this are some resources, some of the nonprofit resources
I see.
CBAM is
Okay.
good. Yeah.
that they can actually help with some of that.
Great. Thank you guys. It's good information.
Oh, I'm just making sure I know where I'm going.
no problem.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. I don't think I'm as exciting as Angel.
I think you are, Hillary.
Are you? I'm going to try. I
let you
promise
know.
I will. Please
We'll all be
do.
in judgment of you.
I know. But my name is Hillary Kaler, and I do work with Angel. I work on the other side of the department. There's only 15 of us in the Area Agency on Aging. It changes every so often. I always say 15. I think I'm close enough. But just a little quick slide about the Area Agency on Aging. I am on the side that works with the Ombudsman program, and that's why I handed this out. Does everybody know what an ombudsman is?
Oh, unfortunately, I do not.
Fortunately, you do not. Does anybody know what it is?
It's a person who represents all the different aspects of a particular organization.
Gets things done.
Advocacy, those types of things. Absolutely. My particular program works as a long-term care ombudsman, so I advocate for those who live in long-term care facilities. And that's part of the Area Agency on Aging. There's 5 of us, and like Angel said, we cover 9 counties. I am lucky enough to cover Mecklenburg County and all the facilities in Mecklenburg, nursing home facilities, and then there's another 5 coworkers that I have, and we cover all the other counties that surround Mecklenburg. We also touch all the different nursing homes, assisted livings, and family care homes. And I have a whole bunch of slides to kind of talk about that. Just to kind of go over some of the choices and options that folks have. So we talked about, it was kind of funny, some of the things that I have in the slides already came up. Every day 10,000 people turn 65, and we already talked about who those people are, right? Baby boomers.
I just turned 64.
Just turned 64. What's close enough?
Happy birthday.
Absolutely.
Belated
27,
birthday, man. 2 days ago.
Okay. Very good.
So, like I said, I even put some exercise photos in there. Were you excited that I did that? Yeah, absolutely. So every day, we have more of a population of folks that are living longer. They're living healthier lives longer, and so we have to address some of those issues. So when we're talking about long-term care, and when I get asked to do a lot of presentations, a lot of times people go, "Oh yes, I want to talk about nursing homes." Is that what everybody thinks? It's so exciting? Not so much. Oh my God, please don't come talk to me about that. I don't want to think about that. But here's the deal. We have to think about it. We have to talk about it. We have to plan. If we want to be able to live at home, we have to be smart. So a lot of the things, we thought it was a nice tie-in with Angel going first. How do we remain in the home? How do we remain safe in the home? What's available to us? I'm going to talk a little bit about community resources as well. And there is no place like home, right? We want to be there if we can. And I will say that with a caveat. We want to be there if we can afford it, and if it's safe. Because a lot of times people say, I've lived here for a long time, but I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for a retirement community. I'm ready for an apartment, or I don't want to deal with my yard anymore. All those types of things that come into play. Okay.
I never wanted to deal with my yard.
You never want to deal with your, I know. It's so true. At any age, right? Absolutely. Not everybody, you know, lawn care is not everyone's favorite thing to do. And I'm sure raking leaves in the past 2 weekends is definitely not my thing that I've enjoyed doing.
Thanks to nieces and
Raking?
nephews
What's
for.
So long-term care continuum. Aging is a process. It starts at birth, it ends at death, and we all go through it. And this gentleman just said it a little bit ago, right? So we all are aging. Doesn't matter what age you are. I always find it fun when I go to different health fairs or different things across the county, and they'll see that we're the Area Agency on Aging, and some people will kind of walk by our thing like, oh, I don't need that yet. I'm like, really? You're not aging? I thought we were all aging. We can always talk about this. We can always talk about what's going on. You have to plan. And I love that phrase that you age as well as you've lived, because things don't happen to us when we turn 65. Things don't happen to us when we turn 85. Things depend on how we've lived. If I've smoked and drank and had accidents and was reckless in my life, things may happen to me earlier, ailments, disease process, than anything else, right? I deal with folks in working with long-term care from age 18 to 105. So I have all different kinds of folks that I work with in facilities. So it's very, very different than it ever used to be. Oh, look, my baby's moving. Didn't know that was going to happen. Ooh, we put him right in the cemetery. Did you see that? Didn't know I did that.
Malaria is dangerous.
Do you like that? Yeah. So start with the basics. A lot of times we get calls. As an ombudsman program, we are, as an Area Agency on Aging and the ombudsman program, we are in every state. So no matter where you move around the country, you can have an Area Agency on Aging. We provide a lot of information, access to information, awareness in the community about what your choices are. And it's nice because sometimes North Carolina's been a retirement location for a really, really long time. So people have moved down. They'll say, when I was in New York, I had this agency. It helped me with my mother. Now I'm looking for resources. What do you know about this, this, and this? So you can kind of start with all those types of things and call us. We work with our local county-specific agencies. So sometimes if we don't know the answer, we will refer you to the Department of Social Services in that county. If there's a council on aging, there's a good senior center, if there's good programs in that county, we're going to refer you to those as well. When people are talking about the idea of long-term care, meaning a very vast idea, what do I need in my home, or what do I need if I would ever move to a retirement community or a facility? What do you need? Medical help? Is it emotional? Is it social? And how are you going to pay for it? So those are the two biggest questions we ask everybody. I want to know what your needs are going to be. I want to know what you're expecting out of this. I want to know if it's you and your spouse, if it's you alone, and how are you going to pay for it? Do I have the funds to pay for it? Privately, am I selling a home? Am I investing in something? Do I have long-term care insurance? More folks than ever do. Or do I have, you know, with my public benefits, is it a combination of things that I qualify for, and how can I navigate that system? The problem is a lot of folks are doing this on their own. They're not pre-planning as well as we'd like folks to. So sometimes you'll see when I talk a little bit further, people are making choices because it's kind of an emergency, something that's happened.
It's extremely expensive.
Absolutely, absolutely. More than ever. So the continuum of care, very basically, is how to remain independent. What are those community-based services? And I have another slide that shows you what those are. A program like PACE. Has anybody ever heard of the PACE program in the community? It's an adult day program. It looks like a senior center. They're very, very nice. They allow people to potentially live with a spouse, live with a family member, but go somewhere during the day that keeps them very active. All of your physical therapists, your doctors, your activities, your meals are in this one location. Folks that belong to the PACE program can actually go there 5 days a week, or they could go there twice a week. There's some folks that go a couple times a month because that's just how they got involved. They might have gone 5 days a week at first. It could have been a situation where someone had had a surgery or had a fall, became involved in the PACE program, and over months and months have gotten much better. But they were still allowed to be in the community and be in their home or be with their family and not have to move into a long-term care facility.
Lauren,
Yeah.
Is PACE an acronym or?
It's programs for all-inclusive care for the elderly. So
Okay,
yes.
Who runs it? State, county? Who?
It's a state, it's almost like very similar to the Department of Insurance It is a insurance program that you dive into, and they become the provider for all of your care. That's why your doctors are there. That's why your therapists are there, those types of things. But it's an option for folks that may need a high level of care, but want to stay in their home or in their home with their family. That's a good question. There's probably, well, let me think. PACES came into place maybe about 7 to 8 years ago. I think we have about 12 or 13 PACES across North Carolina. The goal, of course, is to have all 100 counties covered. If we have 25 or 30 counties covered, I'd be surprised. It's just been very, very slow developing. And it's a really good program too. So facility.
Is it national?
It is a national program. It is, absolutely. But North Carolina was one of the first states to pilot it several years ago, but it's taken off very well. There's a lot of community resources out there that have adult day programs, but they're a little bit different than this one. This one is much more all-inclusive and much more beefed up, I would say, as far as medical care. Facility-based care, most of us are familiar with that. So retirement communities, your CCRC, which is your continuing care retirement community. We'll talk about assisted livings. I have slides for all of the separate ones. Family care homes, which are very small assisted livings. Your nursing facility, which we're all familiar with, and a special care unit, which might be a care unit that has folks with dementia or different needs related to behaviors, and potentially hospice facilities as well. And our acute care, of course, is when we have an accident, we have a surgery, we have an injury of some kind, and we go to the hospital or we have a rehabilitation need. Okay, so your community-based services, just to kind of touch on most of them, you pretty much know what those are. But a lot of times people don't realize a lot of your community-based services are services that might be funneled or run through to your Department of Social Services in your county. It might be something that might be private pay that you can pay for. So there's nutrition programs. I think right now we have about 32 nutrition sites across the county. I might be close, wrong, something, 27, 32, I want to say one of those. Bless you.
Bless you.
And we have nutrition sites. We also have, through Department of Social Services, they're able to bring you the Meals on Wheels program in your home. So if you've had hospitalization, you might have to make sure that nutrition is really important to you and you need meals delivered to your home. You don't have a way to get out and get your meals anymore, or family's not close by. One thing that I do like, and it's kind of been a trend in the past couple of years for pharmacies and for grocery stores, you can order things online if you're savvy, you can drive by and get it. It helps a lot of folks that maybe aren't able to do that grocery shopping. Transportation services in the county, in-home aid or homemaker services where people can come in and provide some care to you. Probably not care where they're gonna help you with a bath, help you with those types of things, but care around the house, basic care. There's senior centers that people can go to, lots of different, like Angel said, there's lots of exercise programs, there's education programs. Some of the senior centers are actually where the nutrition sites are. And health promotion, disease prevention programs, like Angel spoke about a little bit. And there's a lot of different programs that we do through our agency as well. Adult Day is just like that PACE program, but there's adult day programs. And just to kind of give you a little idea of the other things that are out there. A lot of times churches or faith communities have really good, senior groups. They meet, they have education, they do awareness, all those types of things. They might do outings just to keep you very busy and keep you interested in some of those things that maybe you don't get to go to as much anymore because you're not driving, and you can go with a bunch of folks from church and keep you interested and out and about in the county. There's also the Family Caregiver Support Program, which is run through our office as well, but it's delivered generally through Department of Social Services or the Councils on Aging in the community. So lots of different resources to kind of keep you home. So the first one that I want to talk about is retirement communities. So in Mecklenburg County, those are some of the facilities that look like Sharon Towers, Plantation Estates down in Matthews. There's 7 in Mecklenburg County. The Pines in Davidson is a retirement community. Those are communities that are retirement communities. They're usually age-based. Folks are 55 and older or 60 and older when they move in. Aldersgate's another large retirement community in the community. They provide a continuum of care, what starts at independent living and goes all the way through nursing care. So they have houses, maybe cottages, they have apartments, different sizes of those. There's usually an entry fee. They're usually quite expensive. They are a wonderful option if you can afford it, if you're a person who's social, if you're a person who says, I can sell my house and this is what I want to do with that income I have. They're all run through and they're operated through the Department of Insurance. That's how they're licensed. So these facilities have to have certain criteria where they can be called a retirement community, which means they have all aspects of that. So there's usually a contract that you agree to, you lock in a rate, it guarantees whatever services those might be, and you stay there for the remainder usually of your life, you and your spouse being there together if you're there by yourself. I worked at a retirement community, probably it was in 1991. I worked there for about 6 years, and I was able to work in independent living and assisted in the nursing area. And I used to always be fascinated by some of the ladies that I worked with. When you work in a retirement community, you get to know the folks really, really well. And I had a lot of ladies that would say, you know, I'm 98 years old. If I had thought that I would live here for 26 years and still be alive, I could have waited. And they used to laugh. I did my best planning, but I moved in at 62, and just think what was happening when I was 62. So, you know, you try. It was good for them to plan. And I used to tell them, I think you're 98 because you moved here. You have activities. You have people around. You have good meals. You have a doctor on site. You have all these things. Maybe that was part of the reason too. So it's a nice thing. Like I said, it's a nice thing if you can afford it.
It's a good social environment.
It's a very good social environment, and it's safe. You know, in the environment we live in today, I think safety is a big deal. So I think all those things kind of make a difference. When I look at it, and I'll kind of give some examples when I talk about assisted living, retirement communities are expensive, but sometimes in the long run, if you're there for many, many years, they're more cost effective than some other just mainstream. Assisted living. So Mecklenburg County, we have 72 assisted livings. 53 are mainstream assisted livings, and at any given time we have about 20 some odd family care homes. So assisted livings are much nicer looking than maybe what you would think of a nursing home. Assisted livings are usually multi-level. They might be a ranch style. They address and have folks there that need assistance with your daily living needs. So bathing and dressing might be an issue. I don't cook anymore. I don't drive anymore. I need someone to manage my medications because I don't do it very well. So they may have, I've seen people move into assisted living because they're completely vision impaired. They're not able to manage their medicines anymore. They need a little bit of assistance. They're a very high fall risk. When you work in long-term care, everyone's a fall risk constantly. And I think everyone's a fall risk anyway, but they do label folks that way, unfortunately. Or they don't have, you know, the ability to cook anymore. They need those kinds of assistance, those basic daily needs. What's happened to assisted livings in our community is that they have, I think in about 1999, 2000, we had 35 assisted livings open up in 1 year. We used to have some rest homes. They used to call them rest homes. We used to have some smaller, and we just had a huge population boom in assisted livings where all these big companies came in and built all these different facilities. A lot of them are owned by the same folks now. We've had a lot of acquisitions and this, so even though there's that many, there's probably 15 owners of all of these buildings. So it has changed kind of what we see in assisted living. I also see that people have lived in assisted living for so long, it's very, very hard for folks to delineate when's that next step. When do I need to move into a nursing home, or do I ever need to? So a lot of times you'll see people in assisted living that need a lot more help than you would think because they've been there so long. And if they can pay to be there and they want to be there, I guess they should be allowed to be there. But we have to make sure it's safe. One thing I need to say about assisted living, I don't think I put it on a slide. Let me just go back and forth. I kind of did. Assisted livings, they are regulated by the Division of Health Service Regulation, which means they come down. Adult care home is their big label. So adult care homes is the overlying term for assisted livings. So they're regulated. They have surveyors that come in every year and check their quality of care. You can make a complaint at any time. They would come in and do an inspection at any time if someone had a concern or a complaint. But what's happened when I was talking about people being there too long, there's most of our assisted livings in the community are probably 70% full, and that's on a good day. So we have a tremendous amount of beds. We have a tremendous amount of opportunity for people to move in. What do you think it costs to live in an assisted living every month? What do you think is a monthly rate in an assisted living in Mecklenburg County?
2,000?
2,000?
5 to 8,000.
I'm gonna guess that's more like it.
6 to 8.
6 to 8?
6 to 8.
Yeah.
You could get 2,000 or 3,000 if we were out in Lincoln County, and if we were out in Stanley maybe.
Okay.
But Mecklenburg County, it's just boomed in the past couple of years. Years ago, I used to be able to say 3 to 5 was about normal, but it's just gone up tremendously. I don't know about you or me. I don't have $7,000 a month to live in an assisted living. If I had to pay that much money, I would consider staying at home with services. But again, some people can afford that. Some
I've
people,
heard that some people go on cruises, and they just stay on the ship.
yeah, because it's cheaper for like
It's
2
cheaper.
weeks. Yeah, I've heard that too.
Just live on the ship.
That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? I guess, you know, it's the same kind of scenario as, I don't want to say it's
Keep that in mind.
I know, keep it in mind, absolutely. I can't even tell you the amount of folks that I hear
It
from.
may be 2 or
For 6 to
3,000.
8,000 a month, you can
Yeah.
be on a cruise the rest of your life.
You could, because sometimes what is a cruise for a single person? It's like it's almost like $1,200 for 2 weeks, 10 days. Sometimes it depends on where you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're just going to the Bahamas all the time, it might be that
And
way.
they have a doctor on board.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
All
Oh,
the
yeah,
food
rely
you
on
want,
that one.
Recreation, you get to know everybody there.
From being in long-term care and having to work with folks that move out of nursing homes, trying to get back into the community but can't quite make it, or on the flip side of it, being married to a nurse, and my mother's a nurse, so I'm surrounded by them. I'm a social worker by trade, but I just think I know enough to be a nurse, who work in home health. More folks than ever are popping up and living at extended stay hotels. You get your linens changed, $129, $149 a week. So for $700-800 a month, I could be here, and it's an option. And I never thought I would hear anything like that. I thought that's kind of amazing.
That's really downsizing.
It's very much downsizing. And
Clothes on your
home
back.
health will come see you in an extended stay. They
also
consider
have
it a home.
They also have miniature homes.
Yes, little tiny houses. Absolutely.
Where
Those
do
are
they
kinda
put
cool.
those, though? Where are they illegal?
It depends on, yeah, you have to have a certain kind of licensing. A lot of them that I've seen are in Hendersonville and Asheville, which is fine. I'd go there.
I
Angel
haven't
likes
seen
Asheville.
any
She's
of them
probably-
online that are insulated. I've
I've
seen
seen
none.
some. Yeah, I've seen some that
online.
are.
I've looked at quite a few online, and
Not
not,
insulated?
they're not insulated. No, it's just
It's almost like a traveling pod. Do you know what I mean? You know, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term. But so assisted livings are a good option for a lot of folks. They are an expensive option.
Turnover goes up in the winter.
They do provide the basic services that we've already talked about. Most of them have staff available that will help you with things that you need, like CNAs potentially. They are not required, this is always amazing to folks, they're not required to have a nurse. Some absolutely have a nurse. They're there some are there 24 hours a day. They have RNs, they have LPNs. And if it's something that medications, you're diabetic, you need a nurse on site, I want to make sure that they ask those questions up front, because not all assisted livings do. Some have a nurse that visits weekly. Some have a nurse that visits multiple facilities, so they're around, but they're not always on site. And those are very good questions. If you're familiar with the community a little bit, Marywood is considered what they call a multi-unit housing with services. So sometimes it's a retirement type environment. It's not licensed the same as an assisted living, so it's a little bit different.
Where's Marywood?
Marywood's on Park Road. It's an older, established, independent community, and it's kind of near Park Road Shopping Center, that side of town. There's a couple of them around town. The Dorchester's down in Pineville. That's an independent living, but it has some services that might be available on site. And then there's some in Mint Hill. There's some up in, what is it, Shad's Landing. I think that's up towards our office, up off of Harris, Prosperity Creek, some of those types of facilities. Those are different in the sense that they're not regulated like assisted livings, but they're safe senior living opportunities for people to have apartments that are kind of close. It's a nice, maybe they have transportation, a little bit more safe in that type of environment. I always want to mention that there is a star rating system for assisted living. So if you're not happy in an assisted living, if you have concerns in some of these types of homes, you can look ahead of time to see how that facility is rated. And you can do the same thing with nursing homes. Assisted livings are regulated by the state. It's a state product. So every state's assisted livings look different. I always mention that because some states don't even have to have facilities that are licensed or certified. So Susie Q can go open up a building and she can start taking folks in, and paying for their care and being there. Our state's not like that. You have to have a certificate of need. You have to make sure you're licensed with the state. You have a lot more hoops to jump through to be able to build the assisted livings. We've had a moratorium for years where Mecklenburg County cannot build anymore because we have so many and they're not full. If they were all full, it might be different. But like I said, the expense of them in and of itself makes it so that it's not affordable. We definitely have enough people to fill them. But people just don't want to leave their home. Or they have good options. They can live with their family. There's a lot of folks that have mother-in-law suites, live next door so I can be cared for because it's close. Family care homes are really a nice option. They're sometimes a little bit cheaper. They are mostly 6, maybe 4 to 6 people. They have to be unrelated. There can be 2 folks that are related. Most of the folks have to be unrelated in the home. And some of those actually specialize in working with folks with developmental disabilities.
Why do they call it family care then?
Because they're like a small house. They were just, that whole environment
But
was...
they're not allowed to be families.
I know. Do you know why? Because they started out with a daughter's going to care for her mom, and then her mom's sister needed to move in. And a long time ago, people would say, well, that's like a family care home.
It's like a co-op.
Absolutely, it is. So to have more than 6, up to 6 unrelated folks in the home. But those are also licensed under assisted living. It's kind of a neat option. There is actually a person in Mint Hill who built 7 family care homes. He bought a big piece of land. He put a community center in the middle, and he built 7 homes all around the edge. So it's kind of like a little campus. It's a nice little environment. So it's a little bit different, but something like that I think is kind of nice for folks. Nursing homes. This is where I spend most of the majority of my world. Lindsay's my partner. She works with the assisted livings most of the time. I work in the nursing homes. So we all know what nursing homes are. They're the same as they've always been. Some look different than they used to. Some people still have that connotation of that old nursing home. A lot of them have renovated and done a little bit better to look physically better. But that's where you go when you need rehab, right? If anyone's been in the hospital lately, hospitals don't keep you, right? 3 days, maybe, for anything. Heart surgery, anything major, you're not there for very long anymore. So nursing homes have become the rehabilitation centers of our future, right? There are some rehab centers out there that are independent or they're owned by the hospital. A lot of those folks who go to those facilities are able to withstand 6 to 8 hours of therapy a day, something very major, a planned surgery, a car accident, something very major. Most of the folks that have knee replacements or hip replacements, if they're not able to go home, they go to a nursing home. Do you know how much, what percentage of the population will actually live in a nursing home? Any idea?
You mean ever?
Ever, yeah, permanently. How much do you think permanently?
Permanently?
Yeah, how many folks would
Big
permanently?
percentage. It's where most people die.
Well, they, out of the total population, only about 7% of people live in a nursing home as their end resort. But up to 20% of the population will be in a nursing home for rehab. So they might be there for 6 to 8 weeks and then be able to go home. So not as many folks live there long term as they used to, but there's, you know, and I get a lot of calls from Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock from a lot of daughters and sons. My mom had this happen. We need to choose a nursing home and they're telling me I have to leave today. I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help me. So those are the calls that I get a lot. They gave me a list and the discharge planner just said, here, pick one. And they don't know what to do. They don't know where to start, what side of town I'm on. So I always try to navigate through that with folks and say, okay, if you're in Huntersville, these are the facilities up there. This is what this is. These are the choices that you have. And it makes a little bit of a difference. Hopefully it helps folks do that. I find that people don't realize sometimes if you feel that it's unsafe, you can kind of put your foot down in the hospital and say, absolutely not, I'm not going anywhere, it's not safe. I haven't been able to look at that facility. You haven't given me time to plan, I need another day. And I think the more, you know, the squeaky wheel gets more attention, right? If you start saying things, they start looking at you differently. Nursing homes, again, are, one thing I didn't say about assisted living, I'll backtrack just a little. Assisted livings, most of the population in assisted livings are 55 and up. So assisted livings can actually say we're only going to take people at a certain age and up. Some of them don't. You might find assisted livings that have people in their 30s and 40s. They might have mental illness. They might have different things that have happened. They lived with their parents. They had developmental disabilities. They weren't able to live in a group home anymore. So you might see that population in an assisted living. But a lot of times, more and more, I'm seeing assisted livings designate that this is an age restriction and they only take people over a certain age. nursing homes, because they're not state licensed like assisted livings, they're federal. So CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, say nursing homes have to take anyone 18 and older. So I worked in nursing homes for about 6 to 8 years, and I've done this job as an ombudsman for about 16 years. The age that I'm seeing in nursing homes is going down more and more than ever. So I have a wide range of people I work with. I have a lot of folks that are in their 80s and 90s, but I also have a lot of folks that are 27. I never thought I'd see that in my life. It's amazing to me. They don't have, I'm sorry?
What's the cause?
You see folks in nursing homes that have no family or not anyone able to care for them, or such a traumatic brain injury, something that no one can deal with. Alzheimer's at an early age, gang-related violence, gunshot victims, drug overdose. I work with a lot of folks in their 20s, 22, 27. I have a guy I've worked with for years, and I've been real close to his family for about 11 years. And on his graduation day, he dove in the wrong end of a pool on his graduation party. So it's just amazing. People don't really realize that until they get into facilities and they're like, oh, it's not everybody. And I'm like, no, every facility is very, very different. Some facilities do care for a lot of older adults if it's long-term care, but those rehab centers, you see them changing quite a bit as well. Special care units. So a special care unit, like I said, is usually for someone who has some type of dementia. You can have a special care unit in a nursing home or an assisted living, an adult care home. You can have some that are just freestanding. The assisted living, that's all they do is work with folks with dementia. Usually it's a locked environment or a secured environment. Maybe residents have wander guards on so they can't leave the premises. It would be unsafe if they did. They could be on a ground level. They could be on a third floor. Kind of just depends on the particular facility. I have 30 nursing homes in Mecklenburg County. I only have 2 with locked units that have dementia care. But what we know about nursing homes is that about 75 to 80% of people that live in nursing homes have some type of forgetfulness, confusion, or dementia. So there's a lot of people living there, but it doesn't always mean they need a locked unit. It may be a little bit of forgetfulness, folks that just need a little bit of direction, redirection. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be, and I hate the word locked. I like secure better, but a secured area to keep folks safe. These types of units have a little bit better staffing. Staffing in facilities is, I'm going to say, very minimum. So we have minimum standards in the state, which people abide by, but the biggest complaint that I get constantly is there's never enough staff. That's usually the first thing I hear out of everyone's mouth. Yes, sir.
Every place I've ever worked where there were staffing minimums mandated by this, that, or
Yes.
the other thing, that's how many people worked.
Absolutely.
The minimum was the optimum number to expect on. There was never, if there's more than the minimum here, the people from personnel and finance are asking people to go on home.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Absolutely. I think one caveat to that is in retirement communities, you might see a little better staffing just because they have a little bit more surplus of folks. I will say years ago in nursing homes, we would always staff to what would make it comfortable to provide good care. And we would overstaff. But you're right, when you have that minimum standard, which is why a lot of advocates for folks that work in long-term care, like myself and some other groups in the state, constantly say to the state office or the regulatory office, unless you change that minimum standard, nothing's ever going to change, because there's a bottom line. They're a business and they're trying to make money. I've even seen people who, because we're talking about nursing homes where people come and go a little bit, so every couple weeks things change. Every week there's admissions and discharges. Send staff home at 1 o'clock because 5 people moved out that day and that wing is now empty. And we're not going to get anybody in until tomorrow morning. And then how does that help the staff? Well, it doesn't. Usually the CNAs, the ones that get sent home, are the least paid. Usually they have more than one job. And it's just very, very hard. So it's hard on all sides. And I hate to be, I'm like the half glass full girl lately. I've had so many half glass full meetings this week. I don't see it getting better. I see it getting worse. I see the care getting worse. I see the responsiveness of the companies that own them. Until you are punitive to them, until you make complaints, until you're that loud voice, things don't change. And so a lot of times that's what I work with people. You know, how do we make the best complaint? Can I help? Can I be mediative? Because my nature is to come in and say, if you've got an issue in an assisted living or a nursing home, it's specific to you. I'm not getting the baths when I want to. My medication seems to always be wrong. These things are happening. I can come in and try to help fix your issues. But when it's bigger or when it's staffing, how do we get the most bang for our buck? What can I do? Who do I complain to? Where do I go? So those are the things that have changed over the years. A lot of times I would say my biggest complaints were the food's terrible, because it usually is. That was one from before. Yeah.
If you do put in a complaint, how do you deal with the aspect that the family feels that their loved one will not get the care they should, and they'll get worse care because you complain?
Absolutely. That's a very real thing. I think that the fear of retaliation or the fear of making that complaint is huge. Mm-hmm. A lot of families will call me for advice and say, what should we do? And I'll say, have you done X, Y, Z? Ask this person at this facility, go to this person, try this. At the end of the day, I always tell folks, if it's already a big enough problem for you to call me, if you say nothing, nothing will change. So I think we need to say something. One of the things that I try to tell folks in both environments, but especially in nursing homes, is utilize your neighbors and your friends, your resident councils. If everybody on one wing has the same issue with the CNA, go together. So you don't feel like you're just me. Or if the families can develop friendships in the facilities as well, it makes a little bit of a difference. You feel a little bit, you have that power to make that complaint, but at the same time you feel like you're maybe not going to be singled out because of it. Because I do think that's real. Absolutely, for residents, I do. It's a good question. Let me see what else I'm talking about, because I can continue to babble for a long time. Private pay. So the one thing I mentioned about assisted livings is that most of them are private pay. Out of the 53 mainstream assisted livings we have, only 7 take what we call special assistance Medicaid. So Medicaid is for folks that are under a certain income level. So you have to have a certain amount of money in your bank, a certain amount of monthly income. And the interesting thing that North Carolina has done to make it super confusing for everyone is that it's one requirement when you live in the community. There's one cutoff. Assisted living has another cutoff, and nursing home is yet another. So it really depends when you apply for something like that, where am I going to live? And again, how much care do I need? And the cutoffs are a little bit different. Nursing homes are always going to have a primary focus of doing rehabilitation, so that's your Medicare dollars, or your insurance if you've got insurance plans. A lot of folks that live long-term in nursing homes, because again, they're extremely expensive. So nursing homes are about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. Usually if you have any money and you've been there for a while, it's whittled down the longer that you're there, and then you'll eventually go on Medicaid as well. So for a lot of my long-term folks, I have very few folks that I work with that are private pay. I will say, more than ever, I've seen some good long-term care insurance policies that have covered for several years. And a lot of the policies are written better now, where you can pay for nursing home care if you need it, but then if you do rehabilitate back to needing assisted living or going home, they'll cover you in the home as well. It just depends on how that policy was written when you got it. Those are extremely expensive though. You know, every month, my mother's 73 years old, and she complains to me all the time how much her premium is, and she's like, but I'm gonna pay for it because I know I might need it one day, so I'm gonna pay for it. And she reminds me of what you said. She's very, very active into Zumba, cleaning her gutters last year, and fell off her ladder. Had the same kind of issue happen. And she broke her knee, and MCL, ACL, did both, twisted all of the above. But she's kind of finally getting back, but it's taken a good year for her to get back to where she could be.
It does take a while.
It does, it does. So private pay dollars are few and far between. Insurance, of course, the primary one, like I mentioned, is Medicare, your long-term care insurance. Medicare, the biggest one thing I want you to take away with, and people do get this wrong often, is that Medicare is going to cover you in a nursing home for 100 days. Hospitals say that to folks a lot. Usually I don't see folks getting a full 100 days. Usually I see folks getting 20 days, 30 days, maybe, and then they try to send you home with home health services. That happens quite often. So Medicare definitely is one of the best insurance programs that we have. How many folks, you know that they're getting the new Medicare cards this year? Has anyone gotten their new Medicare cards?
Yes.
Have you gotten some? Okay, because I knew they were starting in April, and it was kind of different based on your zip code. They were going by zip codes. They said to don't get rid of your old cards. Have you gotten rid of your old cards yet? Okay, they said keep them for up to a year. Because they said to throw them away originally, and then they said we may have problems, so keep them hidden somewhere. You never know when that'll come up again. Gotta love the government and their infinite wisdom, right? So Medicare, you have a lot of different plans that you can choose from. There are Advantage plans out there, which are advantageous for some. It depends, the premiums might be a little bit different, the premiums might be free. It kind of depends on, again, what you need. If you're a very healthy person, and you might have an issue with paying a premium that's taken out ahead of time, then it might be something where you don't want to have your true Medicare A, your original Medicare. You might look at an Advantage plan, but Advantage plans don't work for everybody. Has anybody ever talked to a SHIP counselor before? Have you ever heard of a SHIP counselor? SHIIP, Senior Health Insurance Information Program. And they're wonderful. They're through the Department of Insurance. If you ever have a question, if you've ever had a lot of medications that you're on and you're worried about your drug plan and your coverage, they're wonderful to call. We have a handful of them in our office. The Tabula Senior Center also has some. But there's
libraries.
Yeah, the libraries have them.
They're saturated in Mecklenburg County if you look that up.
And there's always an open enrollment, which starts in October, and I think it ends December 15th. And that'll talk you through some of your options for some of those plans, and maybe primarily your pharmacy plans. But it can always be advantageous to do that because it'll save you some money. Public benefit of Medicaid, I talked a little bit about. So Medicaid is different, like I said, depending on where you live and what environment that you're in. We are going through in this state, managed care Medicaid is now coming to North Carolina. It'll be about a 2-year process to figure out what that really means to us in the world. And one of the hopes is that it would make it a little bit simpler to qualify. So like I said, when you're in the community base, so if you're in your home, $958. If you make more than that, you can't qualify for Medicaid. If you're in an assisted living and you make $1,248 or more, that's the limit for Medicaid. You make more than that, you're not getting it. In nursing homes, it's way high. It's almost up to $3,800. So a lot of folks in nursing homes might qualify. So what they're trying to do is make it more of a directed care service. We could qualify and you can be where you need to be to get that service. Medicaid is an interesting and confusing, ever evolving thing. And we're one of, I think it's 33 states that have done managed care Medicaid before us. So we're kind of interested in what it's going to mean. I'm apprehensive about what it's going to mean, so I'm not really sure if I love it or not. It's a good option for folks when people have paid all into the system for all their life and they need care back. My great-grandmother lives in a nursing home in Gaston County. She's 94. She sold her house. She was private pay for about 2 or 3 years. She keeps plugging along. She sucks on about 85 dum-dums a day. That's all she does. She loves a dum-dum lollipop. You know those little ones that little kids like? If you give my great-grandmother a dum-dum, she's loving it. The nurses always tell me, well, what do you think's going to happen to her teeth? I'm like, have you seen her? She doesn't have any teeth. It's okay, she has dum-dums. So it's okay. You gotta love that, right? You didn't even know she had false teeth? Okay, here you go. And see, here I'm the ombudsman visiting my great-grandmother in another county, right? I'm advocating for her if I can. One more thing, let me see. Buyer beware. So one of the things that we always like to say, we're available as ombudsmen to be out there and help folks try to navigate through the choices. If you're in a facility and you're having problems, we like to say we're your first person to maybe talk with to see what else you need to do to make a complaint or a concern, or if we can help you mediate something. If you're first time looking at a facility, if you're in a situation where someone needs a nursing home, Medicare.gov has that record of the providers. So they would be able to tell you what kind of a star rating a nursing home has in Mecklenburg County or any county. Medicare.gov covers the whole country. So if you wanted to look up something for someone in New Jersey or Washington State, it's the same thing. Like I said, there's a star rating system for adult care homes and for the nursing facilities. Nursing facilities is on the Medicare.gov website. Some of the facilities, like I said, have changed. There's some culture change efforts in facilities. You might see dogs and cats. You might see birds. You might see some more children's groups. A long time ago in some different facilities that I worked in, one of the best things we had was a daycare center right next to us because we had built-in intergenerational programs. I don't see that as much anymore. It ended up being a great thing though. It was great for the staff. They were less likely to miss work. They could bring their kids right next door. They could see them at lunch. So it was kind of nice. So I think that a lot of times what we're going to see in the future is people have to be smart about what they're doing. They have to be smart about how they're building things, and including the different sides of the generations to include that. I mentioned earlier a little bit about corporate, and I do see more facilities in the community having investment companies own them and buy them. So they're not ma and pa corporate, they're big corporations that own these facilities. You'll see name changes all the time. Bryan Center is a facility that most people know the name of. All the Bryan Centers have recently been sold yet again, and they'll become a new name very soon. We've had a couple of those in Mecklenburg County and across all 9 counties. Even when it's a name change, usually the care doesn't change very much. I would love to think that they're going to come in and make a big difference. It's going to get better, but I don't always see that. And the thing about facilities, like I said earlier, sometimes the things to do when you're there, if you're there a lot and you're visiting, see what's on that activity calendar. See if there's things that are happening if you're going to be there anyway as a family member or a friend. Have the folks, if they're able, get involved in resident councils, and there's family councils as well. It offers kind of a nice support group environment if you can go to those and offer some insight. A lot of folks think, well, they're just complaint sessions. I'm like, well, if you go, maybe you can change that tune a little bit, because sometimes we need a little bit of give and take in those facilities.
Good question.
Yeah.
This isn't so much for a person who is going to live in a place, especially if they've got dementia.
Right.
But if you're taking care of somebody else, I'm curious whether this exists in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a home for an aged person
Mm-hmm.
who needed nursing care. We had just moved into this place, and I discovered that in the lobby, when you first go into the lobby, a public area where you can see, there was a booklet
Mm-hmm.
available which had to have the quarterly report from the health department
Yeah.
listing the things that were complaints that they were complaining about.
Like a survey book to talk
And
about the deficiencies. Yes,
and
absolutely.
I was shocked to see this available for, I went over and paid her, oh my God. You know,
Yeah,
it's out in the public.
it is.
And I don't know if North Carolina requires
We
that.
do. They do require it to be available. I used to see it out more, but maybe about half my facilities have it out somewhere, maybe at the reception desk or in a lobby. Some just have a big sign in the lobby that says, if you'd like to see our survey results, ask for a copy. So they have it, but it is fascinating to read it. And I think it makes a big difference. I really do. And a lot of folks, that's one thing that we tell folks to look at. But sometimes people don't know it, or they don't know it till months later after they've moved in and they finally see what that book is. So it does make a big difference.
I found reading those difficult to interpret.
Oh, it is. It's
And it
awful.
also depended on what the survey team focused on.
Yeah.
Because they seem to focus on one or two departments and not other departments. So,
Yeah, it might be food. There's a lot of food-related issues, or it might be nursing in one. Absolutely, it does make a difference. And they're hard to read. Yeah. Sure.
The report you really like, you can't get, but if you're in the system, if you work in the system, you get the report, and you find out that the people that are government agencies that are in charge of making all these inspections
Mm-hmm.
have the same staffing problems as the rest of the government.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And they have, for Virginia, when I was there, they had 83 long-term care live-in agencies and 14 inspectors.
oh,
And an inspection's supposed to take 2 weeks. That's if all, and there's no way.
Yeah.
They come in and they pick what they're looking at this year because they haven't looked at it for a few years. What they're going to really do, they decided they could come in and just do a little peek, and they never find anything. So they don't tell anybody what it is it's going to be this year. But this year, the physical therapy department is going to get drug over the coals, and they're going to read every single report, and they're going to look at every single client's. You have this thing, an individual plan, and you're supposed to have goals, and you're supposed to have records of how far did you get in your plan to reach the goal. And then the thing that's the year they did it to PT was the one that, because I got a guy who has been making progress for the whole 33 years he's been in the system, and his first grade teacher told me, God, he's exactly the same as he was when I knew him.
What's he been making for progress?
You know, and we have documented that man's progress for 33 years. You know?
Yeah. It's true.
Sustaining sometimes is progress.
But that's not the way, Steve. The head of the department doesn't want us to say we failed to reach the objective over and over again. So they divide it into micro steps, because you don't want to achieve the objective, because then you got to write a whole new objective. So, you know, it's so bureaucratized that, you know, you end up. I used to get in a lot of trouble because they took me off the books, because I had a client who had a problem that she's blind, and I'm like, okay, and I'm supposed to do a progress note on this every month. The woman has.
It's not changed.
Yeah, I mean, and I looked back through, and one of the doctors that used to do this, that was her problem, and she had to write the note, and she got it handed to somebody else. All of her monthly notes said, Sarah is still blind. So I started doing that. You know, she's still blind. No. It's supposed to be activity or ability based.
Yeah.
What did you know? So I changed my note to Sarah did not see again this month.
Just reword it. You're real close. There is a lot of, so the surveyors are out of the Division of Health Service Regulation. They survey both assisted livings and nursing homes. They have to survey each type of home between 9 and 15 months, so almost every year. I think there's about, the largest teams are out of Raleigh and Black Mountain, but then there's also a Charlotte team, because we have so many facilities, and there's a Lexington team, and then there's one towards Wilmington as well. And so they do come in and survey. You never know what they're going to look at. Our teams are usually in facilities between 4 and 5 days. They're unannounced, but as soon as they hit the door, they call a lot of staff in, so they don't always see that there's not as many staff missing. They overdo. So a lot of people say they knew they were coming. I'm like, I think they have like cameras in the parking lot, so when they see the government vehicles come in, they call immediately. But they do base the evaluations on certain pieces of every resident. They look at a percentage of the residents, you're exactly right. And then they also go on complaints. So I tell folks a lot of times, if you've got complaints, call, because they're always going to come in. And the complaints can be kind of categorized a little bit differently. The one big difference when it comes to contracts and things like that, when you're in an assisted living, not only do you have the regulatory stuff to kind of think about and look at, you have a contract. You have a contract at nursing homes too, but it's more of a lease agreement contract when you're in an assisted living or a retirement community. So you have to be really careful of what you're signing. Do they have arbitration clauses in there? Do they say things that don't make sense to you? If you're signing your mom in, make sure it doesn't say you're responsible for mom's bill if mom doesn't pay. You're not responsible for anything. It's not your bill. So different things like that we need to be careful about. This is the SHIP acronym I gave a little bit earlier. And some of those, they're great counselors to talk to. They're all over the county. We can get you some information about where to go if you need to. And when you're looking at some of those things, you know, always get everything in writing, no matter what it is, from any kind of facility. A lot of times I'll see companies come in and buy a facility, and they'll say, yeah, we're not changing anything. Okay, you know, let's make sure that that's really going to happen until I get a different contract, until my rate goes up, or come January, is my rate going to go up? What's it going to mean? I need that in writing. Yeah.
Your statement there, back up.
Oh, go ahead.
Your statement there, don't take a verbal agreement. And you said, like, verbal means the use of words.
You have an oral agreement. That's what
oral
somebody's
is
just talking.
the proper term.
Oh, okay. Well, I like that. Thank you. I didn't originally write all that, so maybe I can say that's not me that did it, but thank you for correcting me. I appreciate that. Nothing beats an alert and competent person. So a lot of times this comes into play no matter where you are in long-term care. Decision making always belongs with the person who lives there, the resident themselves. Talking about advanced directives, making sure that people know what the wishes that you have are really important. And I think that as a society, a lot of times we don't talk about those choices ahead of time very well, whether it's legally, financially, if it's do we want to be resuscitated, do we want hospice involved, do we have a living will, all those types of advanced directives are important to know. And a person, even, I have to mention the caveat of a person with dementia, a person that has confusion can still make choices. And sometimes it's very forgotten. Families, even in the best of circumstances, they want to try and make decisions for their mom or their dad or their spouse. But if that person can make choices at all, we need to look to that person as well to be included. I can tell you what I like to eat, no matter usually how advanced I am. If you put something in front of me and I don't like it, guess what? I don't like it. Sometimes they'll say, you know, mom's diabetic. She's always been real careful about her diet, but now things are changing. She likes sweets. If sweets are given, she wants a bite. A lot of times nutritionists and folks are a little bit, they're better than ever. They'll say, well, no, you don't have to take the cake away from her. Let's just have a really small piece. Let's do it only ever so often. Let's offer only sugar-free ice cream to everybody because it tastes better than ever. All those kinds of things can come into play. But you know, it's always up to that individual to be able to make those choices. I don't think that families intend to make it hard on folks, but I do see a lot of dysfunctional families are one thing, dysfunctional families in facilities are a whole new thing. So it gets worse if you're having to have someone make these choices. If you've got 7 siblings arguing over something, always need to have a decision maker. We need to make sure that if mom or dad's unable or not able to make those choices anymore, that we have an alignment of who's going to make some of those choices. Because it's super difficult for families, puts a lot of pressure on everyone. Navigators, old and new. So we talked a little bit about information that's available in the county. Things, ombudsmen are up there. There's some case management and care management, even through Department of Social Services, to give you some information. We talked about the SHIP counselors. I find that the faith community has some really great programs. If there's a parish nurse at your church, they have some great information for you as well. There's not as many parish nurses as there used to be in some of the churches, but the ones that I've still worked with, they're just great. There are ways, those are more free or low cost. Some of the paid folks that are available, of course, if you're going to get your papers in order, elder care attorneys, there's several in the community. There are some certified senior advisors or case managers. Sometimes those are folks that can say, I work with folks sometimes whose parents live here and they live out of state. So it's another set of eyes for people to say, tell me when mom needs more help. Tell me when she needs this in the house. Tell me when these things might be happening or what we need to do. And there's some other things that are kind of emerging. There's a lot of they call them transition coordinators. We have one in our office that works to try to get folks out of nursing homes if they've been there for a while and they're able to move back into the community. Facilities are supposed to do that kind of transition, but they don't always, because if they're not 100% full, they're really happy to have you in that bed. So unless you're saying I want to move or I want this opportunity, they're not always going to push it. So some of those things kind of make a difference. Who keeps track? This is the part that's interesting sometimes, is because some folks, like how my L and my T kind of fell off there. I didn't see that. A lot of times, who keeps track of all this stuff that's going on? Because it is overwhelming and confusing. If you have an injury, if you go to the hospital tomorrow and you've never thought of these things and you've not thought about, gee, I really want to go to this facility if this happens to me. Gee, I want this person to make this decision for me. This is where all my instructions are in my house. This is what my wishes are. Those are things that we need to talk about ahead of time. A lot of times it ends up on the person trying to keep track of all of those things, and that's super hard. I'll tell you one of the things we've dealt with since the middle of September, when we had all of the Hurricane Florence and the other big storm that we had. I'm still working with people who were displaced from the coast. I had a lady today call me. Her husband and her were about ready to move anyway, lost their house. He was going in for surgery. He had a hip replacement. So he had to be transferred. The children live here. He ended up having some real major issues with his hip, ended up in the hospital. So now he's in a nursing home, all those things. She doesn't have anything ready. She's not ready for him to move out. They're saying, oh, he's rehabilitated. He's great. She's like, I live at my children's house. I have like the clothes on my back. I don't have any of my resources. So some of those, any kind of major life event like that is just so overwhelming for folks to deal with. Thank God they had support by having their family here. Who's keeping track of all of those things? Who's keeping track of what my medications are? Who's keeping track of what I need? And families do a great job of helping. My husband and I both have our mothers that are alive, and we work with them, and they're very independent, but we do a lot for them. We try to help as much as possible. Helping my husband's mother is much easier because she's the person that wants you to come give her all the stuff. My mother, on the other hand, she can do it herself. So I'm like, I want you to do it yourself. I want you to be independent, but I want to know where it is. I want to know how to help you, and I want you to ask me. So I bother her tremendously all the time, I'm sure, with everything that I ask her to do.
Leave her alone.
I know.
So Hillary, on that slide, you had some notes in the PowerPoint that were pretty fascinating.
Oh, okay. What did I say? Because you got my notes. I didn't have it up there.
The period following discharge from the hospital is a vulnerable time for patients. About half adults experience medical error after hospital discharge, and 19 to 23% suffer an adverse event, most commonly adverse drug event.
Absolutely. In the long-term care facility, that's true. What happens in the hospital sometimes is you have, and this is a system failure as well, you have, remember when you used to have a doctor and your doctor would have rights to go to the hospital? Well, of course, that doesn't happen anymore in the past 15, 20 years. You have hospitalists. So you have your medication regimen that works really well for you. And now you've put in place that there's been an injury or there's been a surgery. So you have a hospitalist who says, I don't know why they're on that. And they change everything while they're in the hospital. And then they send you to a nursing home. Or they send you home, and home health is trying to work with that as well. And the daughters there or the residents are going, I was never on this, or I was on this for this reason. And mom's having anxiety, or she's having behaviors, or something's going on because they changed the medicine that she was on. So absolutely, and it can really be very damaging. So again, you as a person have to know exactly what you need. Some of the folks in nursing homes that are so interesting to work with are my ex-healthcare staff. So my nurses, who make the nurse come in and count out every pill and repeat back what that is. And they'll say, well, she's just so demanding. I'm like, she wants to make sure you know it. She wants to make sure that you're giving her something that she knows she needs, that you haven't changed her medications without her knowledge. Because sometimes, of course, they're not supposed to do that, but the doctor can come in and they can say, she's needed this, or she's been complaining of pain, or we've had to give her this. And the doctor can say, well, maybe she needs a little this. Maybe she needs this. Maybe we should add this. Yeah, is absolutely right. And the same thing with home health. Home health has to verify those orders, but sometimes things can get very, very changed in the hospital. I'm so glad you brought up my notes that I put in there. So these are just some of them are advocacy groups. So the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging, that's a group that we belong to, of course, because we are a AAA is what we call ourselves. But they do a lot of good education. They do conferences across the country. Medicare.gov has the nursing home compare area to look at what the different ratings are in the facilities, what you need to know about the facilities. The one thing I like that Medicare.gov has done for nursing homes, they haven't done it for assisted livings yet, is it used to be that you would just see a star rating system and you would see these different measures. Now you can see every complaint lodged about that facility in the past year. So you can actually scroll down and pick a facility and scroll down and see how many complaint investigations have they had, because I think that's very telling of a facility. So facilities are regulated by the Division of Health and Human Services, and it's called the Division of Health Service Regulation. It's a division underneath. There's an assisted living association out there, which has a wonderful lobbying entity. Consumer Voice is a large group in DC that talks about, they used to be called NCNR, which was short for National Citizens Coalition for Nursing Home Reform. They started back in the early 80s to talk about what's wrong with nursing home care and how we can improve that care and what we need to do. And we mentioned the senior health insurance program as well. But there's also a group very similar to Consumer Voice in North Carolina called Friends of Residents. And so they're also an advocacy group that works with all the different types of facilities to try to advocate for change and advocate for increased regulations with staffing, different things that come up every once in a while, and we partner with them pretty often as well. I don't know if that's my last one. Any questions? I know I covered a whole lot of different stuff. It's all a big nutshell of long-term care and facilities are not always the most exciting thing to talk about. But when you think about if I'm ever going to need that information, if I need it for a loved one, if I need it for a child, if I need it for a parent, if I need it for a friend, it's good information to have and how to access it. Is there anything that I didn't talk about that you have a question about?
Obnoxious staff.
Yeah.
When your parent is in a facility and you're trying to tell them, you know, be careful when you lift her out of the chair. She's 90 years old and her skin will peel off if you're rough.
Right.
It's that thin. Ma'am, I've been doing this for 13, 18 years. I think I know what I'm doing. And he brings her back and her skin's peeled off.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. How frustrating.
There's so many obnoxious people who just don't want to be told anything, no matter how nice you are. Say, could I have a moment of your time?
Yeah.
You know, even with doctors, I've noticed. With elderly, so few doctors know anything about 95-year-olds.
Yeah.
They just don't.
You're
You have
exactly
to be on your guard because the doctor will kill your family member if you're not on top of
You
it.
feel like you have to
That's
always
happened-
be there.
That's happened 3 times.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the
If I wasn't on top of it, you know.
Yeah.
What's the name of the doctor that specializes in with old people?
A gerontologist. Yeah.
Geriatric doctor.
Yeah.
Gerontologist.
Gerontologist or
Yeah.
gerontology. Yeah. There's not very many. There's some through some different medical groups, and then there's a memory clinic up at University Place, and some say they specialize in it. And then I find that I even when I talk to doctors, we actually are on a rotation at, I still call it Mercy Hospital, but the hospital in Vail, that's Atrium Health. And we do a rotation every month to do education with the residents there. Hopefully some of them listen to what we say, but they'll even tell us we spend this amount of time because we can't know everything. So we spend this amount of time in geriatrics, and so unless we specialize in something, we know bits and pieces and we learn as we go.
Some things are so very basic though,
You would
such
think they'd
as
know it anyway.
after being on antibiotics, you have to tell the patient and you have to tell the family member both that person is going to need their biome replaced, their gut replaced, so that they can fight off other diseases. Not once did the doctor say anything about it. Anytime I've ever been for an antibiotic, or my mother was for an antibiotic,
Yeah, they never mentioned it.
mentioned it once. It is a lot easier these days to do your due diligence if you have a computer or a smartphone.
It's true.
Because you can start looking up, what is this? What are the symptoms of this?
Or at least get the
C.
questions
diff
asked.
bacteria kills so many elderly people. Well, I had to diagnose it, called the doctor, we need to have a test done, she's got C. diff.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
scabies. I take my mother to the doctor, she hugged somebody at church and came down with scabies, which is the worst thing.
It's
Oh my
terrible.
God. A shingles she came down with.
Yeah.
And they just don't quite know. Shingles is awful because you don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Scabies, you try everything, you go online,
try
you
and
try,
try.
and it's just time has to go by.
Yeah.
It just,
One of the, and you're exactly right about the doctors. One of the things that I do like, some people don't always, I think it's a generational thing sometimes. They want to see the doctor. A lot of my older residents want to see the doctor, but they have a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant that comes in, and they're there more often. The doctor comes once a week, they come 4 times a week. But even though they've been seen by the nurse practitioner 6 times, they want to see the doctor. But sometimes they pay a little bit more attention or spend a little bit more time. So sometimes I'm like, you have been seen by the doctor, but it wasn't Dr. Long, it was this.
Right.
But one of the big issues, I want to say, in facilities, so it's not just in hotels, there's a huge outbreak of bed bugs in assisted livings. And independent livings. Hasn't hit nursing homes as much because they're kind of a more sterile environment, but assisted livings because they allow people to bring in some of their own furniture. So we've had some facilities with scabies. They can kind of quarantine it, shut it down, health department can get involved. but because it's a nuisance pest, no one touches bed bugs. And it's amazing to me. We had a facility very recently literally closed down in Kannapolis, and they're having to tear the building down and relocated all the residents because the bed bugs were so ingrained in the walls that they couldn't clean it.
Wow.
And I thought, oh God, you know, we visit these facilities. So I visit just like this. I mean, I have my keys. I bring nothing in with me. I don't sit on anything. I've become a paranoid person in my life. It didn't have too far to leap to do that.
You scratched right after you said that.
Absolutely. So, and I'm very careful, but I'm a very touchy person, and I do interact with residents, and I'm always very careful. But at the same time, because you want, when you're working with people, you want to be on their level and show compassion and sit with them in the room. And then sometimes I go, be careful, Hillary, because I'm around MRSA and C. diff and all these other things, and you do have to be so careful. But you're right about them not listening and having the common knowledge. Yes.
Twice in the last 2 years, I've gone to visit my grandnieces and grandnephew at school. And both times I got sick as a dog.
Oh gosh, yeah, schools are
Stay away
bad.
from school.
That's true.
What were you thinking?
Going to a program,
Plus
you're
you
doing
might get,
something good.
you might get shot while you're there.
And
too.
I was sitting down on the floor with a bunch of kids.
Of course you were.
And I didn't think of it, they're kids, man, you know, but they, yeah. And, you know, I thought back about it, and I think I got kissed a couple times. But, you know.
Snotty hug.
And part of it is, for me, I worked with mentally retarded and physically handicapped people hands-on for 33 years. 384 of them in one big facility, and I worked with all of them. And after the first year, when I was sick a lot,
You get an immunity to something.
I don't get anything. While I was, I didn't get anything.
But these kids these days have new bugs that we weren't introduced to.
I haven't been doing that for
That's
7 years.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
And now
it's all new bugs.
I get sick when I get, so
Yeah.
it's really funny. You don't think of
I'd
it.
like to go back to what Carla's basic question is. How do we approach the obnoxious staff?
I think it's a very good question. I think that you mentioned even when you do it with kindness. Yeah. So call me. I think sometimes they don't even know what they're doing when they do it. I don't know. I had a lady that was extremely difficult to work with as a resident, very demanding. And she could, throw some cusses and wonderful racial slurs in there while she was being cared for. And it was very hard on the staff. But I had them come, she said to me, please come and watch them give me a bath. I want you to see this. And usually when I come, they're on their best behavior. I don't see what people see. They thought they were doing such a good job with her. And they were so overwhelming and rough and rude and just so undignified with the way they helped her have a bed bath. And I was just amazed. And you go back and you say, and they thought they did great. I mean, they're like, see, she's still ugly to us. And I'm like, tell me how you think that went. She's over there yelling and crying. She had MS. She had significant pain. And she was very alert. She knew everything that was going on. And she was a very particular person anyway, but it just makes it makes it so hard. I think doing it with kindness is the best way to approach it. But you can also say, talk to a nurse, talk to a supervisor. If it's a CNA you continually have issues with, see if they can be removed from that line, see if they can go somewhere else. And you can say, look, I understand you've got a hard job to do. I just need you to know that I know my mom, and she's on medicines because of this. They have a lot of resources in front of them that they're never encouraged to read. So you come in and you're all, as a family, you have to fill out, what do they like to eat? What do they not? What do they do? What's their common, daily routine? What's this and this and this? But they give it to the nurses, or they put it in a book, and they don't give it to the direct line staff. So I always sort of say, have you read this? Do you know this? What I find is that the CNAs that have a consistent assignment know their people pretty well. Usually it's good. But when you get call outs and new staff or agency staff in there, they don't do anything with them. The agency staff comes in and they send them to the floor. They don't say, in 101, you need to be careful of X, Y, and Z. In 102, they really like this. This one stays up late, this one goes to bed early. There's so many things that make their life better as a staff member. And it makes it very patient-centered at that point where you can provide better care. Not a good answer, but some ideas of how to work with
Were
it.
you did you see change when you went in the Pleasanton and
I
observed
did
the
see
bath?
some change. I was able to go back to the nurse managers and say, the girls that thought they were doing so well did all these things, and they did it so wrong. They have to approach her a certain way. And in fact, she's telling them exactly what to do and what she needs if they would just listen to her. You know, because she knew what to do. And I'm like, realize that your families are not in there to make it worse. They're in there to say, this is easier, this works, mom likes this. So yeah, that absolutely makes a little bit of a difference. Sometimes it goes back and forth, but if it's the same staff, it usually at least remedies it for a while.
So Hillary, I want to be respectful of
Oh,
you
yeah,
and
sure.
Abel's time, and make sure that we're now ready past 9. And
Yep.
I don't want to keep you guys here all night.
That's okay, that's
You know,
okay. That's
But
good
But
questions.
I do want to say before we go much longer is how much I appreciate you coming. This
Sure.
information was,
Absolutely, both of you.
Thank
your information was extraordinary.
you. Good.
Very good.
I have a question about night staff.
Yeah. 3 to 11, 11 to
Been-
7, late night,
Well,
all of the above.
3 to 11, and then 11 to 7 would be the night staff. Why is it they don't realize they're in a facility with old people or people who are injured and have to talk loudly after 8 o'clock at
Yeah.
night and can't whisper? They cackle with each other.
Laugh in the
I mean,
hallways.
yeah, nursing home my mother was in. Everybody had that complaint, and
They
would
wake
not-
you up to give you your sleeping pill.
No.
They're just loud in the hallway. Yeah, they're yelling.
They're loud in the hallway.
Pushing
they're
carts.
pushing carts and all that. 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
11 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in
I
the
know the
morning.
answer to that
You
question.
hear them all night long. Cannot they be trained to talk like
Yeah,
this?
they should be.
So
And
it's-
Out in
Go ahead.
in the central area, not while they're going down the hallway with
Yes.
old people trying or injured
sleep.
people
Anybody,
trying
yeah.
to sleep.
The answer to
they're
that question
home
is they slept during the day.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, there you
Exactly.
And like, you're out of here. I'm sorry. You can't be considerate of the people who are here trying to recover. You're out. If you didn't learn that at home, you didn't learn anything.
Well, and I think it goes back to who's supervising that staff at night. I always say some of my better administrators or my better directors of nursing don't work 8 to 5. They show up at weird hours, or they come in at 10 and they stay till 9, and the staff acts tremendously different when there's a manager there. And I think that goes for the weekends too. But not everybody has that feeling. Not everybody gives that extra push to say, I'm going to be that administrator, because they're not told they have to be. They just have to be that person.
you put a sign up.
Yeah.
Quiet
Be
time
quiet.
is from 9 to 7 or 6
And they
or
should,
whatever.
and then they decide, I mean, I've had facilities that have,
Staff
my biggest
included.
complaint, the resident council said to me, they vacuum at night. They clean all the common areas in the main hallways at night. The vacuums, the big huge carts are pushing and going. And I'm like, who, can I ask why you're doing that? And they thought, well, we thought it was a great idea because it's less people out and it was better to clean. Like, did you
course it is,
think
for
people
you.
were sleeping? No, we didn't even think of that. Oh, really? Oh my
How
God.
can you not think of
Yeah,
that?
it's amazing.
Tight labor market. I think
Absolutely.
that's a lot of it.
They're
And
doing what they
the
can
fact
when they
that
can, yeah.
You're sort of abused as an employee to begin with in places like that. So you got to think about that too. You know, it's like there's that.
They can get more done when everybody's
Nights
asleep.
in a retirement home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That can't be easy, I'm just saying.
It can't be. You're right. Can't be.
One you didn't mention,
Uh-huh.
visitors.
Yeah.
Because I know I can visit I have to go a distance to visit this person, so I stay a week.
Okay.
But I go in and somebody's there and find that that person leaves because I'm replacing them, and the patient or the resident says, "Oh my God, I thought he would never leave." And then I stay there for an hour.
Yeah.
And she keeps telling me, get out of there, 15 minutes max.
Yeah.
He's not going to remember that you were here.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to babysit you
Yeah.
because you think you have to be talking to him. And
Sometimes those quick visits are good. I do see people do it differently. Sometimes I see people come different times a day. I think spot checking different times a day for 15, 20 minutes is a great thing to do.
Quick and often.
When you come
Quick and
every
often.
Wednesday from 12 to 2, the staff knows you come every Wednesday from 12 to 2, and things are going to look better.
with the person the person responsible, the caregiver,
Yeah.
has to tell visitors, visit, and then get out of there. But, you know,
Yeah.
let the person rest.
Yeah, yeah.
He's tense and not comfortable
Yeah.
with visitors.
Well, and
Especially-
sometimes it goes, roommate issues are a problem when it comes to visitors. And sometimes there's a lot of issues with someone who's very involved and with all the kindness in their heart and trying to be there very often and driving that roommate crazy. Because they're like, oh my goodness, if we could just, you know, I hear this behind the curtain or you know, every 5 minutes. And so we have to get involved sometimes and say, the residents live here. You don't. There has to be a time limit to how long you're here. And if that resident roommate is complaining, we have to listen to what they're saying. So yeah, you're right. Roommates can be an issue. Visitors too. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate, hopefully you have all of our information. Please, if you have any
I
questions.
need one of these.
Yeah, have some. You can have more.
I have an
I just-
administrative question for you. Is
Yeah.
it okay if I share PowerPoints?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right.
No problem at all. But call us if you have questions or if you have any concerns. I'd love to hear them.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
I've never seen such a well-organized snack mixture. I have to say. Absolutely kudos.
Way too hot or we need
A little bit of everything there.
So did you guys get anything, Hillary?
Well, I had something before I came, so I'm
first time
fine.
Help yourself.
But it makes
Thank you, though.
Interesting.
I wanted to reiterate the offer. If anybody wants a link to the Tai Chi exercises, I can give them to you.
Excellent.
Can you
Wonderful.
post it? Can
Thank
you post
you.
it on the website?
Oh,
Yeah.
The link?
You can, the discussion board, you can post it.
I don't know how to do that.
Yep, she's the one.
I'll try.
You can send it to me and I'll post it
Okay.
for you.
I can
Right.
email
Thank you,
it.
thank you, thank you, everybody.
Just make a
Thanks, Steve.
comment of it.
Nice seeing you, Carla.
I'm not eating much these days, but I wish I were. Nice to meet you.
Good night, Carla.
Good night.
Thank you for your questions.
Oh, sure. I always have fun.
That's good. Makes presenters so much more at ease.
Thanks so
So
much.
Feel free to
The worst is when you have
partake in any of this and or stay as long as you want.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You were gonna ask something about a Tai Chi class.
Oh,
A specific kind.
Yeah.
Tai Chi, what was it?
9 to 7.
Cha, C-H-A.
But next week.
Okay.
How you doing?
I haven't heard of that particular.
That's interesting.
Getting real close.
You'll have to go find it.
Have you Googled it?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and I haven't heard of that either. Are you close?
Going to a class, so.
I was gonna say, are you close at all to
You
this
making this public?
Tybola area?
He's embroidered.
Oh,
Just
that's
off of Right Services do Tai Chi.
that's the one that's Qigong.
Yeah, is that the one that does, I was gonna say.
That's what it is.
Okay, we're recording.
All right, what's this one, Steve? I gotta try your blood red oranges or grapefruit?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Grapefruit. That's a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for?
The ladies were great.
Yeah.
Very
Is
knowledgeable.
it like some grapefruit? No, it's very, very
Passionate about
healthy.
what they
I know it
do.
is, I know it's
Very passionate about what they do.
Very messy.
Energy for the terrific.
I'm worried about
But
the
as far as
intense
taking
citric
thousands.
flavor. Yeah, that's too much for me.
Information.
Well, there are these
Yeah.
lemon
Oh, yeah.
you want one of them?
They did provide some written, some written things, and then I'm gonna take their
You
PowerPoint.
should see them tonight. You want to see the
With the
pictures
notes.
tonight? Any oranges, man?
And it was recorded.
Yeah, I might need them. Thank you. I'm good with one. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah. Here, I need it right and
Kind of a systematic, well, one thing I heard was that the ombudsman.
The kids are there making things out of wood at
Go
the
through and
moment.
say now, like the first step, what's the second?
Right.
What's up? At the moment anyway that I left. Steve, how's it
I
been?
had two technical questions.
Hanging
I
in? Good.
gather there's no way you can start.
I got a warning today from Doug Swain.
Oh.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I don't know.
I had made a posting on
And then
church
the
Facebook.
second
I
thing.
shouldn't have shut this down.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Well,
was,
no, I've tried Googling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've searched and searched. And the
the other thing is, the first
You said it was
conversation.
thin ice. I was on
I
thin
wasn't
ice.
sitting,
What did you post?
so I was
Well,
getting
I
feedback going.
changed
you know,
it,
Oh, yeah.
so
in
therefore,
accordance
he
with
was
his,
in the noise and so forth.
wishes.
And so I was trying using iMovie, and but it doesn't look like there's anything there that he
No, I'll
was
show you why.
So I wondered if there was
I don't
some.
know. Yeah, I have to research it myself.
That was what I was going to ask
Thank
you
you for
about.
that. I feel like I should pay for it myself.
Mike says.
I didn't pay for anything you brought.
That's okay. I almost ate the whole thing.
Oh, I ate a lot,
Processed
Okay.
that.
but I have some.
So we'll get together early next week.
Yeah, okay.
And Mondays are always busy, but Tuesday through Friday. Let's set something up. Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah.
You
You
guys
bet.
want kids?
One day, maybe.
That does look good. Thank
Yeah,
you, sir.
cool. That'd be
Oh,
good.
yes. That's what I'm talking about.
You want a kiss?
Sure. Is this up?
You can have a couple.
No, it's all right. Thanks. Pretty.
So did you get, I sent the thing, did it come
I
back?
think it's
Say
unnecessary.
again?
I sent you the thing.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They got like the best
What's unnecessary,
text
Peter?
I've ever gotten. Really.
Well,
This is one of my
Steve is
students
trying
from my tutor
to-
last year.
Mm-hmm.
This is her math score. this
I
year.
have a concern at the end I can share, which is
Yeah,
that
from D.
Jay's newfound
Made me feel great.
obsession with ancient
So
That's a nice thing. And you know what's really funny? I don't know how old she is.
sort of is problematic
But-
for
13.
Yeah, that's
the
about
two
right,
of us,
because
for
all of
slightly
a sudden
different
she
reasons.
says, oh, this stuff is
I read the Bible, so I know what
and then
he's
she
talking
can
about
go
when he
on
says,
every time she's taking in that class.
I'm not a fan of,
It's
got a little too much genocide.
steps, rules,
My face, a little too big, and a little too
method,
racist.
and then do the problem.
Just a
yeah, math is very cumulative. Yeah.
Too racist.
Exactly.
So, sorry,
My sister taught me
did not
not to.
have anything to respond to
No,
the
it's
last
fine.
thing, but
Stay at home.
You've got plenty of new stuff to respond
She lived
to.
in really nice neighborhoods and lots
I would
of
be just
Jewish kids. They
responding
have
to the same
tutors.
thing.
You know, she was good at it, but the reason she was so good at it is,
Everybody.
I mean, she had
So
a
Jay is
just
trying to
degree in math.
convert the
He was a math
Unitarian
major.
church